Lady Beatrice sneered. Talking to you is truly dull. After speaking, she stared intently at Sophia Evans. When will you finally leave? The rightful owner has returned, so when will an imposter like you get lost? It was almost as if she outright called Sophia Evans shameless and greedy for wealth and status. Sophia Evans, being naturally proud, couldn't bear it any longer. She immediately let out a wail, covered her face, and ran off crying. Seeing Sophia Evans cry, Charlotte Evans could no longer hold back and coldly said, "The princess, having been pampered and cherished since childhood, likely cannot understand what it feels like to have someone stab at the most painful part of your heart." Charlotte Evans wasn't defending Sophia Evans, but Lady Beatrice's words about the two of them clearly showed she held no regard for the Evans estate. The Duke's household indeed held a lofty and noble status, making the Evans estate seem insignificant in comparison. However, if they endured this humiliation and left today, Lady Beatrice would certainly spread rumors everywhere, tarnishing the reputation of the Evans estate. In the future, how would others view the Evans estate? How would they see her father? Lady Beatrice didn't expect Charlotte Evans to dare to embarrass her, and her face immediately darkened. "How dare you disrespect me, the princess? Do you believe I won't have you beaten with a rod?" "Of course, I believe it, my lady," Charlotte Evans calmly responded. "Anyway, you are a county princess, and your father is a prince. Not to mention beating this humble servant with a stick. Even if you were to kill her, the Evans wouldn't dare say a word. After all, the royal household holds a lofty status, and dealing with someone is as easy as turning a hand." Lady Beatrice didn't catch the deeper meaning in Charlotte Evans' words. She only saw her daring to talk back, which infuriated her to the extreme. "What are you standing there for? Drag her down and beat her for me. Please calm down, county princess. Spare her life, county princess." As soon as the words were spoken, the maids and servants behind the Evans were trembling with fear, kneeling down and desperately pleading. Only the servants of the Duke's residence remained unmoved, standing silently on the side, as if they were already accustomed to their master's arrogance and domineering nature. Lady Beatrice cast a cold glance at Charlotte Evans. "Seeing how loyal your servants are to you, if you kneel before me and beg for forgiveness and kowtow 3 times, I might generously spare your life." Charlotte Evans smirked faintly. "What are you laughing at?" Charlotte Evans' clear voice slowly echoed, "I believe I have never offended the county princess. Yet, the county princess abuses her power to bully me, forcing me to kneel and apologize. Forgive me, but I cannot comply." Lady Beatrice erupted in fury. "What are you waiting for? Beat her to death." Charlotte Evans stood her ground, her gaze icy, yet the corners of her mouth curved into a smile. Today, the Evans estate is hosting a banquet, and even the Grand Princess is present. She didn't believe such chaos here would go unnoticed by the main hall. Meanwhile, in the nearby bamboo pavilion, William Evans glanced at Helen Walker. "Ever since you returned, you've been looking distraught and resentful. Who exactly has upset you?" "Hush, don't make noise." Helen Walker frowned and waved her hand. "So troublesome. Such a graceful and elegant figure, as beautiful as a fairy, but why is her skin so dark? Only her eyes are astonishingly bright, as if they could see through someone's soul." Helen Walker sighed. "If her skin were a bit fairer, she might barely pass." Suddenly remembering something, but with her condition, it seems unlikely she could ever get fairer." The more Helen Walker stayed silent, the more curious William Evans became. "What's wrong with you? If something is bothering you, tell me. Maybe I can help you figure it out." Originally unwilling to say much, Helen Walker suddenly hesitated. "Well, you see." But just as she began to speak, Rose White, who was beside Lady Beatrice, hurried over and said, "Something's wrong." The princess and the Evans family's young lady had a conflict. They're arguing endlessly, and even want to hit each other with sticks. William Evans was startled and helplessly said, "Ah, what's gotten into Pignon again?" After saying this, he looked at Helen Walker. "Do you want to come with me to check it out?" "Oh, absolutely not." Helen Walker stood up, dusted off her sleeves, and walked away. "Your younger sister is too arrogant. Every time we meet, we argue. Now, just hearing her name gives me a headache. Don't even mention meeting her. I can't avoid her fast enough." William Evans shook his head and sighed. When he arrived, Lady Beatrice and Charlotte Evans were locked in a fierce standoff. Since Charlotte Evans had her back to William Evans, he could only see her silhouette. At first glance, he couldn't help but smirk. So this was the young lady Helen Walker had pointed out earlier, saying she was beautiful. It turned out to be the Evans family's daughter. As soon as Lady Beatrice saw William Evans, she immediately called out, "Brother, come quickly and help me. She's bullying me. What trouble have you gotten into this time?" His gentle voice carried a hint of helpless amusement. "What are you saying? It's clearly her. Not only does she disrespect me, but she also talks back to me." Hearing this voice, Charlotte Evans froze in place. That voice had lingered in her mind for so many years, making her wish she could strangle him. Seeing her motionless, William Evans assumed she was angry. He was well aware of his younger sister's temperament. Not only had she embarrassed someone on their own turf, but she had also tried to hit them with a stick. No wonder the other person was upset. Taking the initiative, he spoke up. "This must be the fifth young lady, the Evans family's young miss." Charlotte Evans knew she would inevitably encounter William Evans at the Hai Duong Spring Banquet. She just didn't expect it to happen so quickly, leaving her somewhat stunned. Seeing that Charlotte Evans seemed not to have heard, Lady Beatrice raised her voice sharply. "The heir is speaking to you. Are you deaf?" Charlotte Evans took a deep breath, turned around, and bowed respectfully to William Evans. "Greetings to the heir. Wishing you boundless blessings." "Stand up quickly." William Evans chuckled. "So, you are the young lady who just assumed the position at the Evans. What a pity I arrived first. If Henry Walker were here, he could have seen the face of the distinguished young lady of the Evans." William Evans spoke his mind freely. "Raise your head when speaking. Today, I've already intruded upon your residence. As the host, Miss Evans, there's no need to be so formal." "Yes," Charlotte Evans replied softly, but still kept her head lowered. Lady Beatrice, seeing this, grew even angrier. "Brother, see? I told you, someone this disrespectful should be dragged out and beaten with a stick. And who exactly do you intend to beat with a stick?" Hearing this voice, Lady Beatrice froze in place. Even William Evans's expression shifted slightly. Only the corner of Charlotte Evans's lips curled up ever so faintly, almost imperceptibly. The princess, surrounded by noble women, approached slowly. Everyone hurriedly knelt to greet her. "Your Highness, may you be well." "Rise," the princess said. She turned her gaze to Lady Beatrice. "From afar, I can already hear your commanding tone. Tell me, who do you intend to beat with a stick?" Princess Amelia had no fondness for the Duchess of Twee, and Lady Beatrice shared her mother's arrogance and unruly nature. Were it not for William Evans, the princess wouldn't have bothered to pay her any attention. Known for her strict demeanor, Princess Amelia intimidated Lady Beatrice, who now stood flustered under her questioning gaze. "Your Highness." She couldn't think quickly enough and immediately pointed at Charlotte Evans, saying, "She truly disregards royal law, arrogant and presumptuous." I was so angry that I disregards royal law, arrogant and presumptuous. The Grand Princess interrupted her words, smiling meaningfully. "Fifth Miss Evans was personally seen by me to be extremely polite, yet you claim otherwise. Are you questioning me?" Faced with such an accusation, Lady Beatrice, terrified, hurriedly knelt down and replied, "I wouldn't dare." I think you very much dare." Lady Beatrice was humiliated twice in a row by the Grand Princess. The Duchess of Tui, realizing her daughter had angered the Grand Princess, quickly apologized. "My daughter has been spoiled by me and the Duke. I beseech your Highness to show mercy for my sake and the Duke's, and forgive my daughter for this act of disrespect. I will certainly discipline her strictly upon our return." William Evans also quickly added, "Yes, your Highness, please forgive her this once." "Very well, I won't hold this against you today. Stand up." With that, she turned to the Duchess of Tui. "Your daughter truly needs to be taught properly. Those who know the situation will say she's been spoiled, but those who don't might think the Duke's household is arrogant and overbearing." Hearing this, the Duchess of Tui's expression changed. "Your Highness is wise." The Princess Royal waved her hand. "I understand your family's intentions. It's just a reminder." The expression of the Princess Consort of Prince Tui slightly changed. Although the Princess Royal said she didn't mind for her to say such words, was it her own intention or the Emperor's? If it was the Emperor's, then, thinking of this, the Princess Consort of Prince Tui became deeply unsettled. The Princess Royal paid no attention to the Princess Consort of Prince Tui. She instructed Charlotte Evans to pick some camellias for her. Instantly, the gazes of the noble ladies upon Charlotte Evans changed. The Princess Royal was the half-sister of the current emperor. In the past, the emperor was not the crown prince, but the most unremarkable among the princes. To protect the emperor, the Princess Royal endured much suffering. Even later, when the emperor faced difficulties after ascending the throne, the Princess Royal risked her life to save him, leaving behind lingering ailments. Because of this, the emperor felt deep guilt, greatly respected, and cherished the Princess Royal, granting her many privileges. Take William Evans as an example. Among so many noble heirs, why did the emperor single him out for praise? Wasn't it because the Princess Royal admired William Evans, and the emperor extended his favor due to her? Countless people in Royal City have fought tooth and nail to gain the Princess Royal's favor, vying fiercely for her attention. Yet, the Princess Royal took notice of Charlotte Evans, the daughter of a lowly sixth-rank official, who had just been brought back from the countryside. Only the Princess Royal remained indifferent, seemingly unaware of the stir her words had caused. Charlotte Evans was also quite surprised. She could foresee that after today, her days of peace would likely be over. Eleanor Evans, however, thought differently. She believed this was a stroke of fortune for Charlotte Evans. In the evening, after the noble women had retired to rest, and the Princess Royal and other dignitaries were asleep, Eleanor Evans called Charlotte Evans aside. "The Princess Royal treated you with such kindness today. You must seize this opportunity, and not act rashly. This is a blessing for you." Charlotte Evans, however, felt she would rather not have this blessing. Noticing Charlotte Evans's indifference, Eleanor Evans couldn't help but add a few more words. "You've been home for a while now. Haven't you met your elder sister yet?" The elder sister Eleanor Evans referred to was Clara Evans. Clara Evans's mother passed away early, and Eleanor Evans, out of compassion, registered her under Grace Wilson's name and personally raised her. Clara Evans was a true lady of elegance, virtuous, graceful, and poised. In her past life, this elder sister had quietly helped Charlotte Evans on many occasions. "Your sister has gone to Hong Fap Temple to pray on my behalf. She will return home after the Camellia Spring Banquet. In just a few months, she will be married. Do you know how, with our family's status, we managed to catch the eye of the Vinhut Marquis?" Eleanor Evans spoke slowly. "Back then, our ancestor saved Princess Chong, and the princess has remembered this favor ever since. Over the years, she has always treated our family kindly, especially in the past 2 years after the spring banquet of Haitang. Otherwise, do you think the emperor would have specially granted a name for our family estate? Although the Marquis of Yongqing's household is noble, they lack people, and have always wanted to form a connection with Princess Chang, but found no way to do so. Coincidentally, the ancestor of the Marquis of Yongqing's household had some ties with me in my younger days, so they used this pretext to send someone to discuss matters with your elder sister. Of course, this is also because your elder sister is outstanding and truly remarkable, which caught their attention. But more importantly, it is due to our family's relationship with Princess Chang. Now that you've caught Princess Chang's eye, if you work hard, you might even become the secondary consort of the heir in the future. At that point, it would indeed be a blessing cultivated over lifetimes. The Marquis household, no matter how powerful, ultimately lacks substantial authority. It's just an impressive title. But a prince's household is different. Marrying the heir is an entirely different honor. In the future, even if Clara Evans becomes the Marchioness, she would still have to bow to Charlotte Evans. As for why not the main consort of the heir, it's because the emperor personally appoints the prince's wife and heir's consort. It cannot be decided arbitrarily. However, for the Evans family, having someone become the secondary consort of the heir is already a great honor. After all, even a secondary consort's name can be recorded in the royal genealogy. Hearing Eleanor Evans' explanation, Charlotte Evans immediately understood her meaning, and her expression slightly changed. You mean to say, grandmother, that you want me to marry William Evans, the heir of the Evans family? At this point, she stopped speaking. Eleanor Evans continued, the heir of the Evans family is a dragon among men, highly valued by the emperor. In 2 years, he will participate in the imperial examinations, and it's said that with his talent, he's guaranteed to become the top scholar. He is also favored by Princess Chang. Who knows, he might truly. Seeing Charlotte Evans' unpleasant expression, Eleanor Evans misunderstood. Don't belittle yourself. When we return, I'll have Mary Smith prepare a special remedy for you. After half a year of proper care, you'll undoubtedly be as beautiful as a flower. You must trust your grandmother's judgment. Charlotte Evans thought of her grandfather. The old patriarch of the Evans family was once renowned in his youth as a refined gentleman, nearly becoming a consort to a princess. Therefore, when Charlotte Evans grew up, she was bound to be equally exceptional. With her beauty alone, how could she not be able to marry the heir of the Evans family? Even if she couldn't become the main wife, being a concubine would suffice. As long as she could attach herself to the royal family, her future would be transformed. Unexpectedly, Charlotte Evans had no desire for this at all. On the contrary, she felt immense disgust. Suddenly, Charlotte Evans recalled a question posed by Lady Ming in her previous life. If you could do it all over again, would you still choose the husband you have now? The answer is, of course, no. Not only no, but also, while still unfamiliar, find a secluded place to give him a severe beating, leaving him crippled, half dead, and then walk away with head held high to vent the anger. Miss Ming always spoke strangely, so when hearing her say such things before, although extremely surprised, Charlotte didn't fully agree. At that time, Charlotte Evans, in her desire to be recognized by others, had worked hard to mold herself into a refined lady adhering to all the rules and norms of feminine conduct. But in the end, it was all an illusion. Truthfully, if it weren't for Miss Ming persuading her to change her initial mindset, she might not have even survived until Sophia Evans tried to poison her. She would have already died at the hands of William Evans. Therefore, her grandmother might be disappointed. Not only did she not want to marry William Evans, but she also wanted to kill him. With that, Charlotte Evans smiled and said to Eleanor Evans, "Grandmother, it's too early to say such things. To put it mildly, with the proud nature of the former princess consort of Tui, How could she value our family? Even if I were to marry into their family, they would only see us as beneath them, unworthy of mention, and a waste of status. Take my elder sister as an example. Regardless of why the Marquis of Vinhut proposed to her, the Marquis always shows respect to our family and prioritizes us in everything. This proves that the marriage is a good match. Moreover, the royal city is full of noble families. It's not just the Tui prince's residence. Besides, she's merely a prince of a different bloodline. Charlotte Evans' words left Eleanor Evans stunned. She could never have imagined such insightful words coming from the mouth of this granddaughter, who had just returned to the family. For a moment, she was both surprised and delighted. Rendered speechless, it took her a while to respond. "Oh, it's your grandmother, who was short-sighted indeed." Yes, she had only seen the talent of the Evans heir, but had forgotten that the princess consort of Tui was arrogant and harsh. Moreover, the attitude of the princess consort today had already displeased Eleanor Evans, but due to the other's noble status, she hadn't dared to say anything. She had only thought of having Charlotte Evans get closer to the Evans heir. Now, with Charlotte Evans' words, everything suddenly became clearer. She sighed and said, "Sigh, I didn't expect you to have such foresight. You're right. The royal city has more than just the Tui prince's residence. Besides, he is merely a prince of a different lineage. Your elder sister is treated well by the Marquis of Vinhut's household, and you are no less outstanding than her. Given time, you may not fall short of your sister." Charlotte Evans remained silent for a moment. She hadn't expected her words, meant to reassure her grandmother, to be misunderstood. Well, misunderstandings can remain as they are. As long as grandmother doesn't bring up William Evans anymore, that's good enough. Seeing that it was already late, Eleanor Evans said, "It's time now. It's a bit late today, so you should rest early. Tomorrow, Princess Amelia will be going on an excursion, and it will be a busy day again. Make sure to take care of your health." Yes, I understand, grandmother." Charlotte Evans nodded. "Then, you should also rest early, grandmother." Eleanor Evans nodded. "All right, go on, child." After Charlotte Evans left, Eleanor Evans turned to Anna Jones, the housekeeper, and said, "Ah, did you hear that? My granddaughter is far from ordinary." Anna Jones smiled and replied, "The fifth miss is intelligent, wise, calm, and thoughtful. Having ambition is a good thing. But tell me, what does she aim for? Even the Duke of Tui's household doesn't seem to impress her. Could it be that she wants to enter the palace and become an empress?" After saying that, Eleanor Evans chuckled to herself. "Ah, children will be children." Anna Jones smiled and said, "If you truly saw the fifth miss as just a child, why would you trust her words so much? In recent years, His Majesty has been expanding the harem, allowing many women from commoner backgrounds to enter the palace as consorts. Following this, even the princes have taken many concubines from commoner families. Our family is of official rank. Why wouldn't it be possible?" Eleanor Evans pondered for a long while before instructing Anna Jones. "All right, look into it." Mary Smith had long been aware of the incident between Lady Beatrice and the fifth miss earlier today. Seeing Princess Amelia stand up for the fifth miss, Mary Smith felt reassured that her judgment was correct. The fifth miss truly is someone destined for great fortune. When Eleanor Evans summoned her, Mary Smith wasn't surprised, though she didn't understand why she was being called. "May I ask what instructions Eleanor Evans has for me?" "Mary Smith, you may rise," Eleanor Evans said, signaling Anna Jones to bring a chair for Mary Smith and prepare a cup of tea. "Please have a seat and talk." Mary Smith was startled. "I dare not. It's against the rules. When I tell you to sit, you sit. You've been in this manner for so many years, diligent and loyal. It's the right thing to do." "Mary Smith, it's fine." Mary Smith had no choice but to sit down anxiously. I heard your aunt is serving royal consort Alice. A few days ago, Linda Hall was even promoted to noble consort. Yes, that's correct, Mary Smith respectfully replied. It's all thanks to the consort's kindness. Mentioning this, Mary Smith felt a surge of pride in her heart. Eleanor Evans smiled and said, "Years ago, the master saved your entire family, and you were determined to enter the manor to repay the favor. Last year, your aunt mentioned wanting to redeem you, and asked me to let you return to your hometown to rest, but you refused. I wonder if your aunt is upset about that." Mary Smith quickly responded, "Oh dear, Eleanor Evans, what are you saying? My aunt hasn't even had the chance to thank you yet. Back in those chaotic times, if it weren't for the master, I might not have survived the turmoil. Back then, you and the master saw that I had nowhere to go, with a family to support, and despite my roughness, you allowed me to work in the manor as a servant, giving me a job, and even helped me reconnect with my aunt who was working in the palace. Over the years, not only has my life improved, but my aunt also taught me many skills. Now I've been given the opportunity to serve the fifth young lady, and have been entrusted with responsibilities. I know Eleanor Evans has always cared for me, and worried about me in every matter." Eleanor Evans nodded slightly and asked, "Yes, I know you're someone who remembers kindness. So let me ask you, since you're grateful for the fifth young lady's trust, are you willing to make plans for her sake?" Mary Smith hurriedly replied, "Eleanor Evans, what are you saying? I have served the fifth miss faithfully and wholeheartedly, always treating her as my mistress." Eleanor Evans spoke slowly. "Since we're on this topic, I won't hide it from you. Your aunt has now become Linda Hall, the righteous maid. Although she's a servant, her status is quite esteemed. Are you truly content to remain unnoticed and insignificant for the rest of your life?" Mary Smith was startled. "Eleanor Evans, do you mean?" "You should know that the fifth miss is no ordinary person. She's intelligent, insightful, and has great foresight. Tinny is about to marry into the Vinhut Marquisate as the young mistress, and her future will undoubtedly hold greater fortunes. If that's the case, we must not let her potential be buried. However, Charlotte has lived in the countryside for so many years. Her figure and complexion can't compare to Sophia's, not to mention even some of the maids in the estate surpass her. I know your aunt is highly regarded by the noble consort, not just because of her abilities. It's said that ever since your aunt entered the palace, the noble consort's skin has become as fair as snow, smooth and supple, which has earned her the emperor's special favor. Now, I need you to help Charlotte." Mary Smith's expression changed, and she immediately stood up and knelt on the ground. "Eleanor Evans, your wisdom is unmatched. The noble consort's continued favor is due to her own merit, and has nothing to do with my aunt." Everyone stood up and continued talking. Eleanor Evans signaled with her eyes for Anna Jones to help Mary Smith to her feet. "I know your aunt seems to be living a life of glory in the palace, but in reality, it's like walking on a knife's edge. My words carry no other intention than to ask you to plead with your aunt to secure a path for Charlotte. If you truly find it difficult, I won't force you. Tonight, when you leave here, everything we discussed will vanish as if it never happened. You can rest assured that it won't bring any trouble to you or your aunt. Sigh, Charlotte has suffered too much in her life. I genuinely want the best for her and sincerely ask for your help. If this succeeds, you'll be the great benefactor of Evans' estate. We will treat you well in the future. If it doesn't work out, I'll still ensure you live out your days in comfort. After all, back then, the master saved you and your family purely out of kindness. Now, I'm merely being a little shameless in making this request." After saying these words, Eleanor Evans didn't give Mary Smith a chance to respond, and immediately instructed Anna Jones to escort her out. Moments later, Anna Jones returned and asked Eleanor Evans, "Eleanor Evans, do you think she'll agree?" Ah, she will. Eleanor Evans closed her eyes and said, everyone desires to rise higher. She's an old servant of the estate and trusted by Charlotte. When Charlotte marries, she'll undoubtedly accompany her to her new home. Therefore, the better Charlotte's marriage, the more she stands to gain. Just for this reason, she'll agree. But what if her aunt refuses to share the secret recipe? Then it depends on Mary Smith's sincerity. If she truly wants to accomplish something, nothing is impossible. Eleanor Evans had been busy all day today, and after speaking so much in the evening, she was mentally and physically exhausted. Now feeling sleepy, she asked her maid, Anna Jones, to help her retire for the night. She had gone to such lengths for Charlotte Evans because Princess Amelia had treated Charlotte Evans differently today. She hoped that Charlotte Evans would not let her down and could soar to great heights in 10 days. Compared to the calm here, the situation with Sophia Evans was chaotic and tumultuous, as if she were sitting on pins and needles. Sophia Evans, spoiled from a young age, had developed an arrogant temperament. After being humiliated by Lady Beatrice today, and hearing that Charlotte Evans had gained Princess Amelia's favor, coupled with her naughty Emily Davis constantly fueling her anger, she completely lost control and smashed everything in her room to pieces. Grace Wilson rushed in, only to find the room littered with shattered debris, leaving her horrified. "Oh my, Sophia! Why are you sitting amidst this mess? What if you get hurt?" she exclaimed, then turned to scold the maids. "Are you all just going to stand there like statues? If anything happens to the young lady, I'll have you all punished." Terrified, the maids hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. "Mother, there's no need to make it hard for them," Sophia Evans said, as tears streamed down her face. "Hick! Lady Beatrice was right. I am just a farmer's daughter. I am unworthy. I shouldn't shamelessly stay at the Evans. I should go back to the countryside with my flock of ducks. Oh heavens, my child! What are you saying? As long as I don't agree, who dares to send you away? Even a princess cannot." Grace Wilson quickly helped Sophia Evans up from the floor. "You were raised by me, my own flesh and blood. You have nothing to do with that farmer. If anyone dares to suggest sending you back to the countryside, I'll fight them to the death." Seeing Grace Wilson so protective of her, Sophia Evans couldn't help but shed more tears. "I know Mother loves me. In this household, only you still protect me. I truly cannot bear to leave you. But the Evans no longer has a place for me." Emily Davis was right. If not for Charlotte Evans, how could I have been humiliated by Lady Beatrice today? If Charlotte Evans hadn't returned, I would still be the most outstanding young lady in this house. I would have been the one favored by Princess Amelia. It's all Charlotte Evans' fault. Charlotte Evans has taken everything that should have been mine. Sophia Evans felt increasingly aggrieved and resentful as she thought about it. Why has Charlotte Evans come back? If she made a mistake, wouldn't it be better for her to just live as a farmer for the rest of her life? On the surface, she pretends to be indifferent to fame and fortune, acting like a victim, but in reality, just as Emily Davis said, Charlotte Evans returned to take what belongs to me, to exact revenge on me. If I had known this, I'd rather have died. Or left this house, so I wouldn't have to endure this humiliation. Sophia Evans wept bitterly beside her mother. If everyone loves my sister so much, and she has suffered so much because of me, then I'll leave. I won't stay here to be an eyesore anymore. What nonsense are you saying? Grace Wilson scolded. I've already said, without my permission, no one will drive you away. Grace Wilson had foreseen this situation long ago. She hadn't expected Charlotte Evans to have such luck, catching the attention of Princess Amelia. A bitter, indescribable feeling welled up in her heart. She had often wondered, why wasn't it Sophia who was favored, but the daughter who came back from the countryside? If only the two could switch places, How wonderful that would be! Thinking of this, Grace Wilson's eyes lit up. My dear, stop crying. I'm here for you, she said to Sophia Evans. Don't worry. If Charlotte Evans can catch the princess's attention, then so can you. Sophia Evans' eyes brightened momentarily but dimmed again. But how, mother? After all, the princess had no impression of her and clearly preferred Charlotte Evans. Her mother's words were likely just to comfort her. Don't worry about that, Grace Wilson vowed. Trust me, my way is absolutely effective. Seeing Grace Wilson speak with such certainty, Sophia Evans couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. What if her mother was right, and she managed to catch the princess's favor? Then who would dare look down on her? Thinking of the glorious days ahead, Sophia Evans' eyes sparkled. Seeing her daughter cheered up and regaining her spirit, Grace Wilson couldn't help but smile. This daughter of hers had followed her through hardships since childhood, enduring many struggles. As long as it made her daughter happy, Grace Wilson was willing to do anything. One day, the princess sent her personal maid to deliver a special plate of pastries to Charlotte Evans. Daisy Brown exclaimed joyfully, Miss, the princess truly cares for you. Charlotte Evans' gaze was profound. She couldn't fathom Princess Amelia's intentions behind her actions. Years ago, after Princess Amelia was hunted down and took an arrow for the emperor, her health had significantly deteriorated. Outsiders believed that while the princess was strict, she was merely a frail woman. However, only Charlotte Evans knew the truth. Princess Amelia was far from weak. Beneath her exterior was a ruthless and calculating individual, a demeanor that commanded respect and authority. Yet, what puzzled Charlotte was why the princess treated William Evans so differently from other noble sons. To this day, she couldn't understand the reason. What was even more perplexing was the events of her past life. William Evans had been infatuated with Sophia Evans, showing only disdain and contempt for her. Even the Duchess of Sui was charmed by Sophia Evans, rejoicing in her presence. Together, they conspired against Charlotte, leaving her defenseless. Only Princess Amelia stood by her, shielding her and repeatedly warning William Evans that as long as Charlotte remained in the Sui manor, peace would prevail. Otherwise, calamity was inevitable. Time proved Princess Amelia right. After Charlotte was poisoned to death by Sophia Evans, the latter wept bitterly to William, claiming ignorance about the poisoned pastries, and insisting she would never have let Charlotte eat them had she known. Swayed by her tears, William believed Sophia's innocence and even felt relieved, thinking the obstacle that was Charlotte had finally been removed. He wasted no time in elevating Sophia to the position of his main wife. However, Sophia's reign in Sui Manor was disastrous. She wreaked havoc, and her scandalous behavior with William's close friends turned him into a laughingstock. By then, Charlotte's ghost lingered in the manor, unable to leave. Every time she saw William humiliated, she felt immense satisfaction. Indeed, karma had its way. But all of that was in the past. Now, Charlotte's sole curiosity revolved around why Princess Amelia had treated her so uniquely. Even Princess Amelia's attendants shared this curiosity. Your Highness, there's something I don't understand. For a minor official like the Evans family, they shouldn't even be on your radar. If it's merely because Eleanor Evans once saved your life, then the favor you've shown their family over the years has already repaid that debt. Why do you still value the fifth daughter of the Evans family so highly? After all, she's just a country girl with no standing. I simply find Catherine Spring's arrogance intolerable. Years ago, the Emperor granted her the title of a foreign noblewoman out of respect for the Duke of Sui's contributions to our kingdom. Catherine became insufferably conceited, especially with how she raised Gloria Evans. If it weren't for the Duke of Sui petitioning the Emperor to elevate Gloria to Lady Beatrice on the same day, she wouldn't dare act so presumptuously now. Princess Amelia's anger stemmed from another reason. Her daughter, Lady Claire, had been frail since childhood, while Lady Beatrice was domineering and arrogant. With a higher rank than Lady Claire, Beatrice should have shown respect. After all, Claire was a legitimate royal descendant. Yet, Beatrice disregarded Claire and even insinuated that she was destined for an early death. This insult deeply offended Princess Amelia. Thus, when she discovered that Lady Beatrice was making things difficult for Charlotte Evans, she deliberately elevated Charlotte's status. As long as Catherine Spring and her daughter lived in turmoil, Princess Amelia would be satisfied. "So that's the reason," the palace maid spoke. "I'm only afraid that the fifth miss of the Evans family is insatiably greedy." Not at all," Princess Amelia sneered. "Just wait and see. This fifth miss is not someone who can be easily bullied. From her subtle implications today, both in her words and actions, accusing Prince Tui of abusing his power and acting tyrannically, it's clear she's deeply calculating. However, her days ahead won't be easy either." Princess Amelia continued. Yesterday, Grace Wilson looked at her with an obviously disapproving gaze. Clearly, she doesn't like this newly returned daughter of the family. At this moment, Grace Wilson, who indeed disliked Charlotte Evans, came to find her for a conversation. Although she didn't like this girl, she was forced to put on a kind demeanor, thinking she had hidden her true feelings well. She pretended to be affectionate and asked Charlotte Evans, "You've just arrived at the estate. You must still be unfamiliar with many things." "I'm fine," Charlotte Evans replied indifferently. Did you sleep well last night?" "Yes." "And was breakfast to your liking?" Everyone knew Charlotte Evans' breakfast was a special treat personally granted by Princess Amelia. Grace Wilson deliberately brought it up, making her intentions even more obvious. Charlotte Evans curled her lips. "Mother, if there's something you wish to say, just say it directly." Ignoring Grace Wilson's slightly altered expression, she hesitated for a moment before awkwardly replying, "You've been back for several days now, but we haven't had a proper chat. I simply wish to talk with you." Charlotte Evans smiled without responding, letting Grace Wilson ramble on for a while. When the atmosphere grew increasingly awkward and conversation became strained, Grace Wilson finally spoke reluctantly. "Princess Amelia's favor towards you is a blessing for both you and the Evans estate. There's a saying, 'One tree alone cannot make a forest.' Sisters should support and love one another. Look no further than Miss Thursday and Miss Dyke from the minister's household. They live in harmony. We should follow their example." Charlotte Evans continued to smile without replying. Grace Wilson took a deep breath, gritting her teeth as she said, "Since you've gained Princess Amelia's favor, you should guide your younger sisters forward as well. You mustn't selfishly monopolize this favor." Charlotte Evans spoke up. "Mother, do you think I'm selfish again?" In her previous life, she had sacrificed and given up so much for Grace Wilson and Sophia Evans. Yet in this life, before she could even do anything, she was already being judged as selfish. Charlotte Evans asked, "So, is the younger sister you mentioned actually an elder sister or a younger one?" Grace Wilson hesitated. "Your elder sister has already married into the Yonghing Marquis Manor, with a promising future. Naturally, we don't need to worry about her." Charlotte Evans suddenly understood. "Oh, so Mother wants me to bring Sophia Evans before Princess Amelia to seek her favor, is that it?" Before finishing her sentence, she chuckled. "But Mother, you should know that I also have no idea why Princess Amelia treats me the way she does. Furthermore, one cannot act recklessly in front of the imperial family. Even the slightest mistake could implicate the entire Evans estate." This statement was undeniably true. Who knew what Princess Amelia was scheming? Yet Grace Wilson, without much thought, wanted Charlotte to push Sophia Evans forward. What if something went wrong? Unexpectedly, Grace Wilson's expression changed abruptly, and she coldly snorted. If you don't want to, just say so. There's no need to use such excuses. I know you resent your younger sister, feeling that she has taken your place. But no matter what, she still calls me mother. There's no need to be so heartless. Charlotte Evans suppressed her smile. Mother, what do you mean by that? Humph. What do I mean? I think I've made myself very clear. Don't play dumb with me. Grace Wilson suddenly stood up. I came here simply to ask you to say a few words on behalf of your younger sister in front of Princess Amelia. Such a simple matter, and you can't even do it. Seems I've overestimated you. If that's the case, let's pretend this conversation never happened. With that, Grace Wilson stormed off in anger. Miss Daisy Brown, noticing Charlotte Evans' silence, spoke worriedly. Miss, are you all right? I'm fine. Charlotte Evans smiled. You may go about your work now. Mary Smith waved her hand at Daisy Brown, signaling her to leave, and then spoke to Charlotte Evans. The sixth Miss grew up by Madame's side, and after what happened yesterday when the sixth Miss was wronged by Lady Beatrice, Madame wanted to make it up to her. It's inevitable that the sixth Miss might speak a bit rashly, but her intentions are good. Miss, please don't take it to heart. Who knows, perhaps Madame is already feeling regretful and upset about it. Charlotte Evans smiled faintly. I'm all right, Nani. You can go about your tasks as well. Left alone in the room, Charlotte Evans felt a bit stifled and decided to step outside for some fresh air. She thought she had come to terms with everything, believed she had handled things well in recent times, yet she still found herself hurt and indignant over Grace Wilson's favoritism. In her past life, Grace Wilson was the same. Whenever Sophia Evans suffered even the slightest grievance, Grace Wilson would be heartbroken. Meanwhile, Charlotte Evans, in her eagerness to win Grace Wilson's affection, went out of her way to treat Sophia Evans kindly. She believed that since Grace Wilson adored Sophia Evans, treating Sophia well would earn her Grace Wilson's love. But reality proved that no matter what she did, it was all in vain. Just as her anger began to surface, she heard a servant announce Lady Beatrice's arrival. Henry Walker, upon hearing this, immediately turned and fled. In the courtyard, there were a few peach trees standing several meters tall. Without hesitation, Henry Walker climbed up one of the trees, then leaped onto the wall, intending to scale it and escape into the neighboring yard. However, the jade pendant on his belt became loose, got caught on a branch, and fell, landing squarely on Charlotte Evans' head as she stood beneath the wall. Humph. Charlotte Evans couldn't help but let out a sound, raising her head to look up. Hearing the noise and realizing he'd hit someone, Henry Walker quickly glanced down. Their eyes met, and Charlotte Evans stood frozen in place. So it's him. His enchanting almond-shaped eyes sparkled with charm, his skin as fair as snow, and his features stunningly beautiful. He exuded a blend of masculinity and femininity, a balance of gentleness and allure. Yet, his brows carried an air of freedom and defiance. In an instant, it felt as though the entire peach tree blossomed in elegance. Even the swaying petals were no match for a fraction of his beauty. Henry Walker was also momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected such a coincidence, running into the fifth young lady of the Evans family. He recalled how, just yesterday, he had mistaken her for a beauty and trailed her for a while, only to discover she was far from what he imagined. Her darker complexion shattered the image he'd built in his mind. So, you're the fifth young lady of the Evans family, the one who was mistakenly switched at birth? Henry Walker suddenly asked. Since Charlotte Evans had returned to the family, she'd heard countless similar remarks, some curious and probing, others laced with disdain or pity. Yet, Henry Walker's tone remained calm, as though he were casually commenting on the weather, devoid of any judgment or ulterior motive. This simple, straightforward question made Charlotte Evans feel a rare sense of respect. Unconsciously, she smiled. Yes, I am the young lady of the Evans estate who was switched at birth. Charlotte Evans' eyes were stunning, like a piece of exquisite jade, yet also reminiscent of the warm sunlight on a mountain caressed by a gentle breeze. Especially when she smiled, her eyes sparkled as if holding 1,000 twinkling stars. Henry Walker couldn't help but be mesmerized. The next moment, a commotion echoed from the courtyard next door. It was William Evans' voice. Henry Walker's expression shifted. He smiled at Charlotte Evans. "Fifth Miss, could you let me stay here for a while? Let me hide for a bit." Without waiting for her reply, he jumped directly over the wall. His figure landed gracefully on the ground. Even long after this moment, when Charlotte Evans recalled it, she vividly remembered the handsome youth sitting on the wall, smiling at her with a mix of arrogance and charm, as if nothing in the world could ever bind him. That leap, accompanied by a carefree demeanor and swirling peach blossoms carried by the wind, struck her heart without warning. At this moment, Charlotte Evans sighed inwardly. Henry Walker, notorious for his mischief, uneducated and idle, was still the object of desire for countless noble ladies in Royal City. She recalled in her past life when Miss Ming once exclaimed, "I've never seen a man as handsome as Henry Walker. Even better looking than the celebrities we admire. He's so breathtakingly handsome that I can't even take a step forward when I see him. Honestly, just being his confidant would be worth it." Charlotte Evans didn't fully grasp Miss Ming's sentiment, but understood enough to know she was praising Henry Walker's striking looks. Especially when he slightly curled his lips and cast a glance, he resembled a flower swaying in the breeze, blooming slowly yet dazzlingly. "Why are you staring blankly?" Seeing Charlotte Evans silent, Henry Walker waved his hand dismissively. "Aren't you afraid of falling from such a height?" Charlotte Evans asked with a playful arch of her brow. Henry Walker stared at her, stunned. How strange. Normally, the noble daughters and young ladies at Canlong Hanwan smiled at him every day, yet he felt nothing. Why did her smile leave him flustered, his heart racing? Henry Walker reasoned to himself. Surely, it must be because of her dark complexion, which startled him. But considering her eyes were somewhat pleasant to look at, he reluctantly decided to exchange a few words with her. "Why would I be? I've climbed the palace walls before. This is nothing." As he spoke, Lady Beatrice's voice rang out from the neighboring courtyard. "Where is young Master Walker gone? If you don't tell me the truth, you'll all regret it." Henry Walker's expression darkened slightly. He quickly grabbed Charlotte Evans' arm. "Hey, Fifth Miss, let me hide here for a while." Charlotte Evans nodded. "All right, follow me." She led him directly to her side room. Fortunately, Mary Smith wasn't there. Otherwise, Charlotte Evans wouldn't know how to explain the situation. Seeing her calm demeanor, Henry Walker grew curious. "Hey, you're pretty bold, bringing me to your side room. Aren't you afraid I might harm you?" Charlotte Evans Ninhan bang on Mat Nu Nin Ku Ngoc. At the Evans, don't resort to violence. Does the young master treat the law as a joke? Are you not afraid of me? Why should I be afraid of you? But everyone else is afraid of me. Henry Walker smugly declared. I am the infamous little tyrant of Royal City. Whenever I see a beautiful lady, I tease them a little. Ladies from noble families, like you, are the most afraid of me, fearing that I might ruin their reputation, making it impossible for them to marry into a respectable family. Charlotte Evans chuckled, half jokingly, half seriously. That's them, not me. I'm different. You see, I've just returned from the countryside, and the Evans isn't exactly a prominent or noble family. It's likely I'll have a hard time finding a husband, let alone a good one. Since you bumped into me, why don't I just marry you? Consider it a fortunate match for me. Thinking about it, I'd actually be getting quite a good deal. Henry Walker's jaw dropped, taking a while to regain his composure. Are all girls from the countryside this cheeky? Charlotte Evans smiled without replying. It wasn't that girls from the countryside were cheeky, but in her past life, William Evans had led troops into battle and suddenly went missing. To search for any trace of him, she disguised herself as a man and joined the military, braving life on the battlefield. Over time, she grew more straightforward and bold, naturally different from the well-mannered ladies raised under strict rules in Royal City. Moreover, in this life, she had no hopes or expectations for marriage, so she cared even less about such matters. Of course, Charlotte Evans only behaved this way in front of Henry Walker. Perhaps it was because, in her past life, Henry Walker had personally killed William Evans and Sophia Evans, wiping out the entire Duke of Twee's residence in a bloody revenge. Indirectly, he avenged her, which is why she felt particularly different toward him. However, as Charlotte Evans observed Henry Walker now, this so-called little tyrant looked like a fool. It was hard to connect him with the ruthless, cold-blooded general he would become later on. It was strange. Henry Walker had clearly been a good brother to William Evans in the past. Why had they ended up betraying each other, with Henry Walker even killing William Evans himself? The most puzzling part was that, after killing William Evans in the previous life, Henry Walker had gone straight to the backyard, carefully tucked her memorial tablet into his chest, and carried it away with great care and seriousness, cherishing it deeply. Charlotte Evans couldn't understand what sort of grudge or bond existed between her and Henry Walker. After all, in her past life, she had only met him a few times. But Charlotte Evans was certain that Henry Walker bore no malice toward her. On the contrary, the feeling was quite peculiar, though she couldn't pinpoint or comprehend it herself. Seeing Charlotte Evans remain silent, Henry Walker pretended to probe further. I heard you offended Amelia Evans yesterday. Charlotte Evans smiled and retorted, how does the young Marquis know that I offended her, and not that she offended me? Understanding the meaning behind her words, Helen Walker slightly raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement flashing in her eyes. You truly are different. Do you even know what kind of person Amelia Evans is? And yet you dare to say such things? It must be known that Amelia Evans has long been accustomed to throwing her weight around. In Royal City, there isn't a single noble lady who isn't afraid of her. No matter how formidable Lady Beatrice may be, she cannot surpass the royal family. His Majesty is currently in need of people, and Duke Twee at the border has quite a number of followers. To win over Duke Twee, His Majesty has bestowed unparalleled honor upon the Twee family. With the way His Majesty handles matters now, in less than 5 years, the Twee family is bound to face trouble. Helen Walker smirked knowingly. So, you're telling me all this, aren't you afraid I'll tell William Evans? You should know that William Evans is a close brother of mine. Hearing the name William Evans, a fleeting chill appeared in Charlotte Evans's eyes. Ha! The little tyrant of Royal City who fears neither heaven nor earth is now asking me so many questions about fear. This doesn't seem like the young Marquis's usual way of doing things. Charlotte Evans had her own intentions. Like the young Marquis, one who lives in this world, if always consumed by fear, then life would indeed be dull. For the first time, Helen Walker was caught off guard by someone's retort. She froze for a moment before bursting into laughter. Ah, young girl, you're so young yet act so worldly wise. Just like your elder brother, Daniel Evans. Daniel Evans is the eldest son of the No family, and Charlotte's biological half-brother. From Henry Walker's tone, it seemed he and Daniel Evans were old acquaintances. Charlotte asked curiously, Does the young Marquis know my brother? Why wouldn't I? Your brother is one of the 8 renowned gentlemen of Royal City. Henry Walker lazily replied, Back in the day, when I climbed a tree to raid a bird's nest, I accidentally smeared bird droppings on one of your brother's books. Truly, eh? Thinking of this, Henry Walker clicked his tongue twice. Daniel Evans may appear rigid, serious, and reserved, but in reality, he's full of schemes and quite cunning. Most importantly, he's even more calculating than me. Yet, his handsome and upright appearance deceives many. Even William Evans sides with him. You and he are truly siblings, especially with that habit of speaking half-truths and keeping secrets. Truly cut from the same cloth. Hearing this, Charlotte Evans suddenly recalled her past life when she married into the Duke's residence. Her elder brother, Daniel Evans, had a heated argument with Grace Wilson. At the time, she was naive and tried to persuade her brother not to be angry with their mother, telling him that she willingly married William Evans and that Grace Wilson was their mother. Even if she was a bit cold toward Charlotte, she couldn't possibly harm her. Now thinking back, it seemed her brother had already uncovered the truth about William Evans' motives for marrying her, which was why he tried so hard to oppose Grace Wilson. Unfortunately, Charlotte was timid and misunderstood William Evans' actions as protecting Grace, and even defending Charlotte herself, leading her to push her brother away. Back then, Charlotte couldn't understand why Daniel Evans looked at her with a mix of hesitation and frustration, only to sigh in the end. Now, she realized her brother must have thought she was foolish, deserving of being deceived and abandoned. Though Daniel Evans was a man of few words, and the two siblings rarely conversed, he had genuinely tried to help her. Charlotte then asked Henry Walker, "Oh, by the way, I heard that my brother was sent by His Majesty to assist the sixth prince with water management in Jiangnan." That's right. It's quite a blessing for Daniel Evans. Normally, noble descendants without official titles wouldn't be entrusted with such tasks. But Daniel Evans caught the sixth prince's eye and was taken to Jiangnan. It's said that upon his return, your brother's reputation will soar. And next year, if he passes the imperial exams as a Tanhua scholar, he'll transform into a carp leaping over the dragon gate, becoming a favored figure before His Majesty with boundless prospects. About to return, huh? Henry Walker asked curiously. Why don't you ask your family about this matter instead of coming to me, an outsider? Are you sure I'll tell you? Charlotte Evans smiled and countered. But hasn't the young Marquis already told me? Truly born of the same mother as that Daniel Evans. Henry Walker looked at Charlotte Evans and suddenly sighed. Another day, when Daniel Evans returns, let's drink together, shall we? 13 years ago, during the chaos in Daliang, many women joined the army to fight enemies. Afterward, Daliang became less strict about men and women being together. On the streets, men and women walking together became common, and even libraries allowed them to sit and read together. However, many aristocratic and scholarly families remained quite conservative, strictly opposing such practices. This led to some women being able to freely go out, while others stayed confined at home veiled. Nevertheless, Henry Walker, accustomed to a carefree lifestyle, did not bother with such formalities. He found Charlotte Evans to be very agreeable, different from the other young ladies he had met before, and wanted to drink with her. Charlotte Evans thought for a moment, and nodded in agreement. You're quite bold, aren't you afraid? Henry Walker trailed off, suddenly recalling Charlotte Evans teasing him earlier. You trust me so much, but what if I truly ruin your reputation? Then you'd have no choice but to marry me. But I'm naturally fickle. After marriage, I certainly wouldn't stay by your side alone. I'd spend my days wandering brothels, indulging in fleeting romances. By then, you'd be crying. So what? Charlotte Evans poured herself a cup of tea, took a sip, and then spoke. By then, you'd be lost in the allure of tender beauties, and I'd have my own personal space. We wouldn't interfere with each other. Wouldn't that be perfect? Or are you saying, young Marquis, that you prefer marrying a fierce wife who keeps you under strict control every day? No way. Henry Walker quickly replied. I don't want to marry so soon. Being free and unrestrained on my own is so much better. Henry Walker suddenly came to a realization. Ah, so you knew from the beginning that I was joking with you. Of course. Charlotte Evans recalled her past life. Henry Walker had not yet married, which gave him the audacity to act this way. Regarding Henry Walker's marriage, the old Marquis had scolded him and even punished him, but to no avail. In the end, Henry Walker achieved military success and was titled general. The old Marquis, feeling powerless, could only let him be. While they were speaking, Mary Smith returned. Henry Walker waved at Charlotte Evans. Your mother has arrived, so I should leave now. You've helped me today. I'll repay this favor another day. Wait for Daniel Evans to return, and we'll drink together. He took 2 steps, then turned back. Oh, right. Since we know each other, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't think that just because the princess asked you to pick flowers and rewarded you with desserts, it means she values you. Be careful not to be toyed with. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned and leaped out of the window behind him. His figure disappeared. Charlotte Evans knew the princess had ulterior motives, but couldn't figure out why. Now, hearing Helen Walker's words, she finally had an answer. Lady Claire and Lady Beatrice were at odds. The princess deliberately gave her special attention, likely to embarrass the Duchess and Wren Evans, avenging her own daughter. A calculated move. A ploy for peace. Unexpectedly, she had unknowingly become a pawn in someone else's game. Oh dear, why is the young lady sitting alone in the side room drinking tea? It's chaos outside because of you. Mary Smith hurriedly entered and spoke. What are you talking about? Well, earlier, this servant overheard the 4th Miss saying that yesterday you spoke with the Heir Evans, and even suggested you had intentions. Charlotte Evans sneered. Emma Evans, are you out of your mind? Telling others I have feelings for. William Evans? Are you starting to think the Evans reputation is too flawless? At that time, the 4th Miss and the 6th Miss were talking in the pavilion. The 4th Miss exaggerated and spread many bad words about someone in front of the 6th Miss, but unfortunately, Miss Jane Wright and Lady Beatrice overheard it. Who doesn't know that Miss Jane Wright admires Heir Evans? The minister and his wife even regard Heir Evans as the ideal son-in-law. Moreover, the minister's wife is a petty person, and with Lady Beatrice adding fuel to the fire, they started saying I have no shame. Charlotte Evans calmly finished the sentence. Mary Smith looked worried. Miss, you just returned to the residence and already faced so much gossip. Yesterday, the princess consort favored you, and this morning everyone is buzzing about you. Now this incident arises as well. Mary Smith sighed. Right now, Madam is calling for you to reprimand you. I came immediately to inform you. Even without Mary Smith speaking, Charlotte Evans already knew what these people were saying. They were merely accusing her of being bold, trying to cling to someone above her station without knowing her place. Don't worry, Mama. Charlotte Evans smiled reassuringly. Things I haven't done, no matter how much 4 Sister slanders me, they will never become reality. After saying this, Charlotte Evans went to meet Grace Wilson. When she arrived, Grace Wilson looked displeased. Madame Elizabeth Evans, née Tran, was also present. Seeing Charlotte Evans arrive, Madame Tran sneered coldly. Your daughter is here. Punish her as you see fit. Grace Wilson had already been angered by Charlotte Evans earlier that morning. Upon returning to her quarters, Madame Tran brought Emma Evans to accuse Charlotte Evans of ruining the reputation of the Evans young ladies. Now seeing Charlotte Evans, Grace Wilson coldly snorted. Kneel down before me. Charlotte Evans knelt down, and after paying her respects to Madame Tran and Grace Wilson, she stood up and slowly asked, Have I done something wrong? How dare you still ask such a question? Grace Wilson pointed directly at Charlotte Evans. Yesterday at the estate, you had the audacity to seduce Lord Evans. Such shameless behavior has brought disgrace upon the Evans family. Lady Jane Wright and Madame Catherine Wright left in anger because of you. You caused trouble for your sisters, making them suffer as well. And yet, you still don't recognize your fault? I don't understand what you mean, Mother. How have I brought disgrace to the Evans family? At this point, you still deny it? Grace Wilson's chest heaved with anger. Yesterday, you openly seduced Lord Evans, even causing a commotion that reached the princess. Is this true or not? Grace Wilson had been conversing with other ladies yesterday, and was unaware of the incident between Charlotte Evans and Lady Beatrice. She only heard Emma Evans claim that Charlotte had seduced Lord Evans, which led to Madame Catherine Wright and Lady Jane Wright storming off in anger. Believing Emma's words, Grace concluded that Charlotte was at fault. Charlotte Evans angrily retorted, "Mother, you should at least ask for the full story. Why do you listen to one side and then accuse your daughter? You dare to talk back." Grace Wilson's hand trembled. "Yesterday, I spoke with Heir Evans, and it was all because of Lady Beatrice. There were many maids and old servants present at the time. If Mother doesn't believe me, feel free to call them to verify. Moreover, even the princess knows about this matter. If Mother doesn't trust me, surely you trust the princess, don't you?" Grace Wilson was so furious that she was left speechless. Charlotte Evans didn't give her a chance to respond and directly questioned Emma Evans. "For a sister, I've only met Heir Evans once, and we only talked because of Lady Beatrice. How did it turn into me having an affair with Heir Evans when it reached you?" Emma Evans turned pale. She had always disliked Sophia Evans for her arrogance. Now that Sophia had returned to the residence, the grandmother doted on her endlessly, and even Emma's own mother had remarked that Sophia would soon be driven out. So, Emma intentionally made many mocking remarks in front of Sophia, including the matter about Charlotte Evans, which Emma deliberately used to provoke her. Emma's exact words were, "Sixth sister, you probably don't know, but fifth sister was just in the courtyard flirting with Heir Evans. Oh my, the two of them seem to have fallen in love at first sight. Soon, she'll marry into the Duke's residence. By then, there won't be any place for you here." Sophia Evans became furious and argued with Emma, but unexpectedly, Lady Jane Wright and Princess Pingyang overheard the commotion. Shortly after, Lady Catherine Wright arrived. Emma, recognizing her as the wife of the minister, was instantly terrified, as she had only seen Lady Catherine once before, and never spoken to her. Confronted directly by Lady Catherine, Emma was so frightened that she didn't dare to breathe loudly. Adding to the situation, Princess Pingyang scolded Charlotte Evans, and Lady Catherine Wright concluded that the Evans family's daughter was at fault. Early the next morning, Charlotte Evans received favor from the princess. Ironically, the princess greatly cherished William Evans. Because of this, Lady Catherine left with her daughter in anger. Grace Wilson, hearing the news, hurriedly brought people to the side hall, coincidentally where Madame Tran was also present. Like Grace Wilson, Madame Tran had no knowledge of the previous day's events, leading to the current misunderstanding. Seeing Charlotte's question, Madame Tran turned to Emma Evans. "Speak honestly, what exactly happened?" Emma Evans, just 15 years old, was raised by her concubine mother, which had fostered a spoiled and bullying nature. Faced with Madame Tran's interrogation, she instinctively thought of Madame Tran's strict household rules. Terrified, her legs gave way, and she knelt to the ground. "Mother, I didn't mean to. I just said that fifth sister spoke with Heir Evans. I didn't expect Lady Catherine Wright and Lady Jane Wright to misunderstand. I was wrong. I won't do it again." Hearing this, Madame Tran fully understood. It was indeed this concubine-born daughter who had caused the trouble. Unlike Grace Wilson, Madame Tran came from a noble background and was known for her strict and effective household management. She immediately said to Grace Wilson, "Oh dear, it seems this was all a misunderstanding. Sister-in-law, rest assured, I will make sure to discipline you on her properly when I return home." After speaking, Willow Reed, the maid attending to Emma Evans, was scolded, "Are all of you nothing but useless logs? Hurry and take the young lady back to copy the women's commandments 10 times as punishment, then have her face the wall and reflect on her actions. No meals for her today, and no one is allowed to feed her. Without my permission, no one is to release her. Let's see if she dares to stir up trouble again in the future." Mrs. Tran excused herself first. Grace Wilson, having no further matters to address, refrained from saying much and simply stated, "For the sake of your mother, I'll let this slide today. But I don't want to see this happen again." Emma Evans hurriedly pleaded, "I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again. There absolutely won't be a next time." Grace Wilson pursed her lips, saying nothing further. In a blink, only Grace Wilson and Charlotte Evans remained in the side hall. Grace Wilson knew she had wronged Charlotte Evans, but couldn't bring herself to admit it. Adding to her frustration, Charlotte Evans had shown a firm attitude earlier, which reignited Grace Wilson's anger. "If you knew how to conduct yourself properly, your fourth sister wouldn't have spoken about you like that." Charlotte Evans couldn't help but laugh. Today's matter was clearly caused by the fourth sister stirring up trouble. Even Anne said it was her fault, yet Mother blames me? Grace Wilson, repeatedly refuted by Charlotte Evans, became furious. The old saying goes, "Flies don't land on a clean egg." That saying always holds true. "Madam, how could you say such things to the young lady?" Mary Smith, noticing her mistress's unreasonable words, couldn't hold back from speaking up in defense of Charlotte Evans. Since the young lady returned to the residence, she has always been taught by Eleanor Evans to act cautiously, and has never made a mistake. Today's incident was purely accidental, and Lady Elizabeth Evans herself has stated that this matter has nothing to do with the young lady. It was caused by the fourth young lady stirring up trouble. So why is Madam suddenly angry for no reason? You, a mere servant, dare to question my words, your mistress? And you even bring up Eleanor Evans. Are you trying to use her to suppress me? This servant would not dare. I see you are very bold. Kneel in the courtyard immediately, and without my order, you are not allowed to get up." Madam. Catherine Taylor, the old maid, could not help but gently remind her, "There are many distinguished guests here today. If you punish Mary Smith now, it may not be appropriate. Perhaps it would be better to wait until we return to the residence to deal with it. What do you think?" Catherine Taylor, the wet nurse of Grace Wilson, had followed Grace Wilson to Evans' estate as part of her dowry. Grace Wilson always listened to her. "Fine, I'll let you off this time." She glanced at Charlotte Evans. "But you caused this incident today. Though it's not entirely your fault, it still stems from you. Pack your things and return to the residence later. There's no need for you to stay here at the manor anymore." Mary Smith's face turned pale. The young lady had worked so hard to gain Princess Amelia's favor, and now she was being sent back to the residence. Wouldn't all her efforts be in vain? Charlotte Evans slightly shook her head at Mary Smith, signaling her to stay calm, then said, "I will obey the order." Charlotte Evans did not want to stay at the manor either. She had come here solely to meet Henry Walker, as she was curious about the man who, in her previous life, had killed William Evans and carried her memorial tablet away. Now that she had met him, there was nothing left to linger for. Moreover, with Princess Amelia behaving as she did, Charlotte Evans only wanted to leave as soon as possible to avoid becoming a scapegoat. After Charlotte Evans left, Grace Wilson held Sophia Evans' hand and said, "I've sent her back to the residence now. Are you happy?" Sophia Evans immediately clung to Grace Wilson's hand and acted coquettishly. "Mom is so kind to me. You're the best mom in the world. Being able to call you Mom in this lifetime is a blessing accumulated over several lifetimes of good deeds. Even princesses aren't as lucky as I am to have such a wonderful mother like you." Grace Wilson was amused and chuckled. "You little monkey, always saying sweet words to make me happy. I swear to the heavens, every word I say is sincere." Sophia Evans smiled brightly. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll definitely be filial to you in the future and make you the most blessed person in the world." Grace Wilson was so delighted by Sophia Evans' sweet words that her heart bloomed with joy. Suddenly, she recalled the way Charlotte Evans had confronted her earlier in the main hall, and a wave of irritation swept over her. No wonder she didn't have a good impression of Charlotte Evans. Tich was always the most understanding one. She knew only Tich was the best. When Charlotte Evans was unjustly sent back to the estate, Eleanor Evans didn't receive the news until noon. By the time she sent someone to retrieve her, it was already too late. Eleanor Evans was so furious that she slammed the table. That's her biological daughter. How could someone be so unreasonable? I've truly seen it all now. Anna Jones, the housekeeper, saw Eleanor Evans was deeply angered and quickly tried to console her. "Oh dear, Eleanor Evans, please don't be so upset. Lady Victoria Evans has always been like this, and besides, the sixth Miss has been raised by her side since childhood, so it's inevitable she'd show some favoritism. Even though Lady Victoria Evans was wrong to send the fifth Miss back, what's done is done, and we can't change it. After all, there are many distinguished guests in the residence. If this matter causes a disturbance, it might become a laughingstock. Instead of dwelling on it, why not quickly come up with an excuse for the fifth Miss? In case the princess summons her, we'll have something to say." "Ah, you're absolutely right." Eleanor Evans took a deep breath and calmed herself. "Well, isn't Charlotte's maternal grandmother unwell? If anyone asks, we'll say her grandmother is gravely ill and, upon hearing that Charlotte returned to the estate, urgently wanted to see her. Say that Charlotte, being so filial, rushed to her grandmother's side." Anna Jones nodded in agreement. "I understand, Your Highness. You are truly considerate." Indeed, not long after, Princess Chang summoned Charlotte Evans. The palace attendant reported, "Charlotte Evans' maternal grandmother is gravely ill, and she has already returned to her grandmother's residence." Princess Chang raised her eyebrows. "Her maternal grandmother?" "Yes, from the Wu family. They were once a scholarly and prestigious lineage. The late emperor even praised the Wu family in the past. However, due to later wars and chaos, the Wu family fell into decline. Nonetheless, as a family personally honored by the late emperor, they are still regarded as noble." Princess Chang nodded in understanding. "Ah, so it's the Wu family. Renowned in name, but without real power. Miss Evans has returned for quite some time, yet only now do you go to visit her. Go and find out what has happened." The palace maid had already investigated thoroughly and immediately reported back to the Princess Royal. After hearing the report, the Princess Royal sneered. "Grace Wilson is truly biased." The palace maid echoed, "Indeed, Your Highness." The Princess Royal said indifferently, "Well, since she has gone, let it be." Speaking of Charlotte Evans, as she was halfway on her journey, she suddenly heard the sound of galloping hooves from behind. Shortly after, someone called out, "Fifth Miss! Fifth Miss!" Moments later, Daisy Brown lifted the curtain. "Miss, it's the young Marquis." "Him?" Charlotte Evans was slightly surprised. As soon as she finished speaking, Henry Walker rode his horse alongside her carriage. "Changing your route, fifth Miss? What a coincidence to meet you again." Charlotte Evans lifted the curtain. "Young Marquis, aren't you supposed to be at the estate? Where are you heading?" I just received news that the sixth prince is returning to the capital. I'm going ahead to welcome him." Charlotte Evans was overjoyed. "Does that mean my elder brother will also return soon?" "That's right." Henry Walker nodded. "That's why I dared to come and tell you. You seem very happy." "Thank you, little Marquis," Charlotte Evans replied, her eyebrows arching, the corners of her eyes sparkling like the stars. Henry Walker couldn't help but clutch his chest. That strange feeling of his heart pounding strongly came again. Henry Walker had a handsome appearance, with rosy lips and pearly white teeth. Even a simple action like raising his eyebrows could make Charlotte Evans' heart flutter. Adding to that, he was clutching his chest, prompting Charlotte Evans to ask, "Are you feeling unwell, little Marquis?" Her clear eyes were filled with sincerity and concern. Henry Walker's heartbeat skipped a beat. He quickly turned his head to the side, needing a moment to recover. Charlotte Evans, confused by his reaction, was about to speak again when Henry Walker interrupted, "Stay away from me." Charlotte Evans looked puzzled. Henry Walker turned back to her, his face serious. "If you stay away from me, I'll feel better." It was true what people said about Henry Walker being a little tyrant, moody and unpredictable. Now, it seemed even more accurate. It wasn't until Henry Walker disappeared from sight that Daisy Brown commented, "How can this little Marquis speak so rudely? He clearly approached our young lady first, yet now he tells her to stay away from him. How unreasonable." Charlotte Evans, however, simply smiled. "It's all right." The day after Charlotte Evans returned to the estate, Clara Evans also came back. It was the first time Charlotte Evans saw her elder sister again after being reborn. Clara Evans had a dignified appearance, her face delicate and gentle, exuding an effortless charm. Charlotte Evans thought to herself, "No wonder in my previous life, the young Marquis of Vinhot Marquiate adored my elder sister so deeply." "You must be Charlotte?" Clara Evans smiled gracefully. "Father has already told me about you. We sisters should have met sooner. But I went to Wongfap Temple to pray, and was gone for 15 days. I just returned today. Please don't hold it against me." "What are you saying, sister? You went to pray on behalf of grandmother, showing such devotion. Your filial piety is truly admirable. I should be learning from you instead." Clara Evans smiled and replied, "It's not as great as you make it sound." Charlotte Evans asked, "Everyone seems to be heading to the estate for the spring begonia banquet. Why didn't you go?" Charlotte Evans smiled and replied, "Of course I went, but I found it boring. Then grandmother remembered her scriptures left out to dry and hadn't been put away yet. It wasn't convenient for her to return, so I volunteered to come back and take care of it." Although Clara Evans wasn't at the residence, there were still people reporting the household matters to her. She knew that the maids were responsible for looking after grandmother's scriptures, so why would Charlotte Evans need to step in? Clara Evans suspected Charlotte's words weren't entirely truthful, likely just an excuse. However, unable to pinpoint the exact reason, she let it go for now. "Well, that works out perfectly. You can keep me company and chat for a few days," Clara Evans suggested warmly. Clara Evans wanted to strengthen her bond with Charlotte Evans. She had always liked Charlotte, and Charlotte, in turn, helped Clara organize her belongings. Within an hour, Clara's belongings were neatly arranged, and their relationship had suddenly grown closer. A servant arrived to announce, "The eldest young master has returned." Clara Evans was delighted. "Big brother is back. He went to Jiangnan with the sixth prince and has just returned today. You haven't met him yet. Let me take you to see him." Charlotte Evans smiled and nodded. When the two arrived, Daniel Evans had just returned to his courtyard. Servants were bustling in and out, tidying up the place. As soon as they stepped through the door, they saw a young man dressed in elegant white brocade, exuding an air of grace, as refined as ancient jade. Daniel Evans turned around, and Clara Evans noticed the young man's sharp brows and bright eyes. His gaze was clear, and the slight curve of his lips softened his otherwise stern and commanding demeanor. "Big brother, this is Charlotte," Clara Evans introduced without waiting for Daniel to speak, gently pushing Charlotte Evans forward. "She just helped me organize my things." Daniel Evans knew Clara to be poised and outwardly gentle but inwardly reserved. Among all his siblings, she was the closest to him. For her to introduce Charlotte so openly in front of him showed how much she genuinely liked her. Daniel smiled and said, "A good younger sister." Charlotte Evans smiled, bowed, and greeted him. "Charlotte greets Big Brother. Wishing you good health. Please rise," Daniel Evans said, observing her for a moment before remarking suddenly, "You resemble our grandfather very much." Charlotte Evans was stunned. In her previous life, someone had said the same thing, but it wasn't Daniel Evans. It was someone from the Lamb family. Seeing Charlotte Evans's confusion, Clara Evans explained, "Grandfather was a handsome and outstanding man. Big Brother is complimenting your beauty." This was also a confirmation that Charlotte Evans was indeed a true descendant of the Evans family. Clara Evans asked with concern, "Big Brother, was your trip smooth?" "Everything went well. Don't worry." Daniel Evans nodded slightly. During their conversation, Clara Evans learned that he had once again achieved merit on this trip and smiled as she said, "Then Big Brother must give us gifts. Especially Charlotte." "Of course." Perhaps because Clara Evans was present, the three of them got along harmoniously. Daniel Evans said to Charlotte Evans, "Father has already explained everything to me. The past is behind us. You've suffered a lot. Now that you're home, that's all that matters. If you need anything in the future, come to me, or you can go to your elder sister." "I understand." "Thank you, Big Brother. There's no need to be so formal among family." Daniel Evans gifted Charlotte Evans a fan made of rhinoceros horn. In Jiangnan, rhinoceros horn fans are considered precious. Even the concubines in the palace use them. "I hope you like it." Charlotte Evans could tell at a glance that Daniel Evans had spent a lot of money on it. She sincerely said, "Thank you, Big Brother." Daniel Evans then turned to Clara Evans. "Last time, you mentioned wanting silk from Jiangnan. I'll have Shaoxi deliver it to your courtyard." "All right, I'll embroider a sachet for you in return." Daniel Evans rarely joked. "With so much silk, just one sachet seems a bit stingy, don't you think? Big Brother, I know you want me to sew clothes for you, but if I do that, there won't be enough left for grandmother." She changed her tone. "Charlotte, do you know Helen Walker?" Charlotte Evans was surprised that her elder brother suddenly brought this up and replied, "Yes. At the Spring Begonia banquet, I met Daniel Evans." Frowning slightly, Charlotte Evans asked, "Why do you ask, brother?" "It's nothing." He thought for a moment before saying, "Well, if you meet him later, stay away from him. He's too good at pretending and isn't a good person." Though he said that, it was evident that Daniel Evans and Helen Walker had a very close relationship. Charlotte Evans suddenly recalled that Helen Walker had also spoken about her brother in a similar way, calling him calculating, which made her chuckle. "What's so funny? Brother, did you know he said the same about you?" Charlotte Evans laughed and said, "Seems like the two of you have quite a good relationship. Are you very close to him?" Daniel Evans caught the key point in her words. "We've only met a few times." Because of events from her past life, Charlotte Evans trusted Helen Walker. To Charlotte Evans, Helen Walker somewhat resembled an old acquaintance, though the feeling wasn't exactly the same. This made her unconsciously feel closer to him than to others. However, this wasn't something she could share with anyone. She could only say, "Although he behaves recklessly and without rules, he's a sincere person." A hint of surprise flashed in Daniel Evans' eyes. You've only met him a few times, yet you hold him in such high regard? But in just a moment, he understood. He is someone who likes to make acquaintances. No matter how he treats you later, don't pay attention to him. It turns out that Daniel Evans had just arrived on the outskirts when he met Helen Walker. Mentioning Charlotte Evans, Helen Walker said that another day they must invite Charlotte Evans out for a drink. Daniel Evans knew Helen Walker well. If someone didn't truly catch his eye, he would never invite them for a drink. Just earlier, Daniel Evans had warned Charlotte Evans to be cautious of Helen Walker, and the next day, Helen Walker had already come knocking. It turns out Helen Walker had been granted 2 bottles of fine wine by the Emperor and remembered that during the spring peony banquet, he had mentioned wanting to invite Charlotte Evans for a drink. So, he brought the wine to Evans' estate. I didn't know the young lord would grace us with his presence. If there's any discourtesy, I hope the young lord will forgive me. Oh, enough of that. Helen Walker frowned slightly. Pretending is your specialty, isn't it? Where's your little dark-skinned sister? Daniel Evans understood immediately. The little dark-skinned sister. Daniel Evans also found it strange. His sister had just returned to the estate and already caught Helen Walker's attention. Daniel Evans lowered his voice. She's probably busy. What could she be busy with? Helen Walker shook the wine jug in his hand. I already arranged with her yesterday to have a drink. This is the fine wine I just brought from the palace. I specifically invited her to drink. Hurry up and call her out to join us. That won't be necessary. Daniel Evans immediately refused. She's still young. He truly couldn't see where Charlotte Evans was considered young. Charlotte Evans had a tall and slender figure. Although she was only 12 years old, she looked more like she was 14 or 15. Definitely not small at all. Daniel Evans, do you know what it means to commit treason? Young Marquis, actually my little sister isn't home. Not home? If she's not home, then where did she go? Before Daniel Evans could finish speaking, Charlotte Evans appeared. Daniel Evans was at a loss for words. Seeing Helen Walker and his elder brother staring at him intently, the atmosphere between the two was quite strange. Charlotte Evans smiled and asked, Brother, did I come at the wrong time? Weren't you supposed to go to the Evans estate? Why have you come back? Helen Walker was about to speak when Daniel Evans interrupted. She came back. Charlotte Evans was initially surprised, but quickly understood Daniel Evans' intention and went along with it. Oh, I was planning to go, but my elder sister had some matters to attend to, so I returned. I just happened to come looking for you. I didn't expect the young Marquis to be here as well. I won't disturb you any longer. After saying that, Charlotte Evans turned to leave, but was stopped by Helen Walker. Fifth Miss, don't be in such a hurry to leave. I came today precisely to invite you for a drink. Young Marquis, Charlotte is still young. She's young? Helen Walker sneered, refusing to give up. Charlotte Evans had no choice but to follow. At the estate, everyone else had gone to attend the Begonia Spring Banquet. Charlotte Evans decided to bring Clara Evans along. Helen Walker was quite the socialite. Taking advantage of the beautiful spring weather, he led everyone to Wangjiang Tower, finding a spot near the water to sit down. In the main hall below, a storyteller was narrating tales. In the distance, boats leisurely floated along the river. This was the best spot for enjoying the scenery at Wangjiang Tower. Today, I'll broaden your horizons. In the estate, only Clara Evans and Daniel Evans got along well. Daniel Evans was close friends with Helen Walker. Over time, Clara Evans also became acquainted with Helen Walker. Hearing his words, Clara Evans smiled and said, Isn't it thanks to the young Marquis' favor? Enough, stop teasing me. As if you've never been here before. Helen Walker said, As far as I know, your famous fiancé often brings you here as well. The Vinhut Marquette intends to form an alliance with the Evans family. The Evans family, on the other hand, seeks to elevate their status. Adding to that is the long-standing bond between the two families' ancestors and Princess Amelia's involvement. Nowadays, with the open-minded customs, men and women frequently travel together. Peter Moore invited Clara Evans out on several excursions, only to have Helen Walker find out. Seeing his younger sister being teased, Daniel Evans remarked, "The young Marquis certainly stands out. While others go out to relax, you specialize in following others to watch the fun." He was barely short of accusing Helen Walker of eavesdropping. Helen Walker, however, didn't mind. A talented man and a beautiful woman always make for a lovely tale. As they were talking, a commotion erupted downstairs. Helen Walker leaned out to take a look. "Oh! Speak of the devil, and he appears. Isn't that Peter Moore over there? Oh, and William Evans is with him too." Charlotte Evans followed his gaze and looked. Sure enough, William Evans and Peter Moore were making their way upstairs. At the entrance, several young ladies of blooming age continuously threw flowers into William Evans' arms. He didn't seem annoyed. Every time he received flowers, he would gently clasp his hands and smile softly, making the young ladies on the street even more flustered, their cheeks flushed. William Evans had always been like this. When faced with girls who admired him, he neither took the initiative nor rejected them, but treated them kindly. This earned him the title, "Gentleman as Jade," placing him at the top of the 8 great talents of Royal City. "What are those two doing here?" Helen Walker asked Daniel Evans. "Could it be they heard about the fine wine I was gifted and came here on purpose?" Daniel Evans replied indifferently, "The young Marquis is overthinking it." While they were talking, William Evans and Peter Moore went upstairs. William Evans did not expect Helen Walker and Daniel Evans to be there as well. A flash of surprise crossed his eyes. "Oh, what a coincidence to meet you here, young master," Helen Walker said. "Isn't it quite the coincidence?" Daniel Evans and his 2 younger sisters immediately stood up and bowed to William Evans and Peter Moore. "No need for such formalities when we're out enjoying ourselves," William Evans said, motioning for everyone to sit down. "Since we've met, let's drink together," Helen Walker suggested with a smirk. "Who wants to drink with you?" William Evans retorted. "I heard you just received 2 fine wines from the palace," Helen Walker said, her gaze falling on the table. "Are these the ones? Your information is quite impressive. I had barely left, and you were already here. Are you sure this wasn't premeditated?" William Evans chuckled. "In all of Royal City, only you are clever enough to figure that out." Because Daniel Evans had just returned to the capital with the 6th prince, the group discussed political matters for a while. Charlotte Evans and Clara Evans couldn't join the conversation, so they quietly sat aside. After 3 rounds of drinks, Helen Walker suggested that drinking like this wasn't fun and proposed taking turns. Helen Walker was the first to drink. When he poured the wine, no one dared to refuse. Charlotte Evans accepted it. Peter Moore and Clara Evans had been engaged for a long time. Naturally, Charlotte Evans had to drink. When it was William Evans' turn, Charlotte Evans said, "Thanks to the Crown Prince Evans for his care, but I've already had too much to drink today and truly cannot handle more. I beg the Crown Prince's forgiveness." William Evans smiled gently, but his words were far from gentle. "You drank happily when it was their turn, but now you claim your tolerance is low when it's my turn? Are you looking down on me, the Crown Prince? That's quite a serious offense." Clara Evans' expression slightly changed, and she was about to speak up for Charlotte Evans when Helen Walker sneered. "You really don't understand, do you? She already said her tolerance is low, and yet you're forcing her to drink. If she doesn't say anything, you accuse her of looking down on you. Aren't you just deliberately making things difficult for her? William Evans was about to respond when Helen Walker continued, You're already 18 years old, and she's only 12, 6 years younger than you. Yet you shamelessly bully her like this. William Evans, embarrassed by Helen Walker's words, couldn't help but darken his expression. You're always running your mouth. Thanks to Helen Walker's intervention, Charlotte Evans ultimately avoided drinking William Evans's wine. On the way back to the estate, Clara Evans worriedly said, Little sister, today you offended the Evans heir. I'm afraid he might make things difficult for you. He won't. Charlotte Evans smiled reassuringly at her elder sister. The Evans heir is talented and gentle like Jade. How could he bother with a young girl like me? Only Charlotte Evans knew in her heart that, despite William Evans's seemingly carefree demeanor, he was actually quite vindictive. This time, he had likely taken offense at her. Clara Evans sighed. I used to think the young Marquis acted without principles. Today, we were fortunate to have her help. Without her, I wouldn't know what to do. Back at the estate, Daniel Evans specifically called Charlotte Evans over to ask, Have you had any past grievances with the heir? Charlotte Evans asked her elder brother. Why do you ask? Daniel Evans pondered for a moment before replying, You are very close to the young Marquis Walker and hold great respect for Deputy Marquis, yet you seem distant and indifferent towards the Evans heir. Coincidentally, the heir also attended the banquet at Highgang Spring. I wonder if there was some misunderstanding between you two. There's no misunderstanding at all. Charlotte Evans replied calmly. Some people are naturally compatible, while others are not. That's all. Daniel Evans grew even more puzzled, still doubting Charlotte's words. The Evans heir is kind and reasonable to everyone. No one dislikes him. Why is it that you? The Evans heir is indeed very good. Charlotte Evans interrupted. But just because others like him doesn't mean I have to. People have different tastes, like turnips or greens. After a pause, Charlotte added, If I must explain, it's because of Lady Beatrice and Miss Jane Wright. With that, Charlotte Evans recounted the two incidents that occurred at the Highgang Spring Banquet to Daniel Evans. To avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, I can only keep my distance from the Evans heir. Daniel Evans was surprised to learn what had happened at the Highgang Spring Banquet. He agreed with his sister, saying her approach was wise and justified. 2 days later, the Highgang Spring Banquet concluded, and the women of Evans' estate returned to the estate one after another. On the day Sophia Evans returned, Charlotte Evans was playing ball in the courtyard with Clara Evans when she saw Sophia Evans approaching from afar, accompanied by a group of maids. Radiant and proud, Sophia walked through the nine-bend-covered corridor. Charlotte Evans noticed an additional palace maid trailing behind Sophia and asked, Sixth sister, why is there a palace servant following you? Clara Evans followed Charlotte Evans's gaze and looked over. Indeed, it was as expected, so she said, This palace servant. Don't worry, elder sister. It's probably some good news. Charlotte Evans comforted her. How do you know it's good news? Just look at Sixth Sister's expression, and you'll understand. Clara Evans noticed Sophia Evans smiling brightly, feeling slightly reassured. She instructed a maid to go over. Go and find out what's going on with Sixth Miss, and what that palace servant is about. Clara Evans then turned to Charlotte Evans. If Sophia has returned, Mother must have as well. Do you want to go and greet her? Let's leave Mother for later. I want to greet Grandmother first. That works out, as I also want to visit Grandmother. After Clara Evans finished speaking, she placed the ball in her hand on the railing, extended her hand, and said, Fifth sister, let's go together. When the two arrived, Eleanor Evans had just returned to her room. Seeing the two holding hands as they entered, Eleanor Evans couldn't stop smiling. Oh my, I was just thinking that Tendy had returned, and now I see you two already playing together. looking so close. This is the first time I've seen Tenny take the initiative to hold her sister's hand. Clara Evans, having been raised and taught by Eleanor Evans, was always composed and graceful in her actions. As the eldest sister, she had to set an example and be strict with herself, never playing or joking around with her younger sisters. Thus, it was no wonder Eleanor Evans was surprised. Clara Evans, slightly embarrassed by the praise, blushed and glanced at Charlotte Evans. This sister is very kind. Since learning that her younger sister had been switched at birth, Clara Evans had been worried day and night. Clara was cared for and nurtured by Mother. Even the slightest scratch would make Mother feel distressed, yet Charlotte had to endure hardships in the countryside day and night. Clara Evans was not oblivious. She understood the struggles of rural life and knew Charlotte must have suffered greatly. Yet Charlotte never complained and spoke highly of her adoptive parents. Furthermore, she discovered that Charlotte was a kind-hearted young lady with a pure and bright mind. She was also very clever, often grasping things with just a brief explanation. Her unique perspective when questioning matters impressed Clara, making her feel inferior in comparison. Though it had only been 2 days, Clara and Charlotte Evans had already bonded like family. Eleanor Evans laughed and said, "Well, it seems that blood ties truly matter. Otherwise, how could you two be so close?" After finishing her conversation with Eleanor Evans, Clara Evans went to greet the others. Charlotte Evans was held back by Eleanor Evans. "My dear, I have something to discuss with you," Eleanor Evans said, instructing maid Anna Jones to bring over a red gilded invitation card and hand it to Charlotte Evans. "This is from Princess Zhang before her return to the palace. She entrusted your grandmother to give it to you. Princess Zhang invites you to attend a pear blossom banquet the day after tomorrow. Since you weren't there, she specifically asked your grandmother to pass it on to you." In truth, Charlotte Evans didn't want to go, but with the invitation personally delivered, it seemed she had no choice but to attend. Seeing Charlotte Evans remain silent, Eleanor Evans misunderstood her thoughts, assuming she was still upset about the night of the camellia banquet. She said, "About the camellia banquet, it was your mother's fault. I will address it with her myself. But you and Sophia shouldn't hold grudges against each other. She's spoiled by your mother, but her heart isn't bad. This time, when attending the pear blossom banquet at Princess Zhang's residence, you two should go together so there's someone to look out for you. Be careful." Charlotte Evans wasn't surprised to hear that Sophia Evans would also be attending. After all, if she was going, it was only natural that Sophia would too. However, as she left Rongning Hall and encountered her eldest sister on the way, she realized things were not as she had thought. "Charlotte Evans, do you know why Sophia Evans now has a servant following her?" Charlotte Evans shook her head. "I just found out from Mother. It turns out that after you returned from the camellia banquet, Sophia somehow caught Princess Zhang's attention. Not only did the princess personally assign a servant to attend to her, but she also specifically invited her to the pear blossom banquet 5 days later." Clara Evans chuckled. "No wonder she's been so smug lately. Such fortune is rare and enviable." Her tone shifted slightly. "I only just learned about the pear blossom banquet. I wonder if you're on the guest list. Here's the invitation," Charlotte Evans said, shaking the card in her hand. Clara Evans finally sighed in relief. "It's good you have one. I was worried you might have been overlooked." Clara Evans, as the future daughter-in-law of the Marquis of Yongxing's household, naturally received an invitation. Now seeing Charlotte Evans also had one, Clara smiled and said, "Since Princess Zhang values you, you must make a good impression when the time comes. With your calm, composed demeanor, neither arrogant nor fawning, you're sure to catch the eyes of esteemed individuals even more than Sophia." Speaking of this, Clara Evans' gaze darkened slightly, and she sighed. I just found out that the reason you returned to the mansion early was because of the matter with the young lady of the right family. No wonder that day, when we were drinking together, you didn't show a good face to Lord Evans. But this matter is truly Mother's fault. It wasn't your mistake at all, yet she didn't distinguish right from wrong and sent you back. Clara Evans did not have much affection for Grace Wilson. She was merely listed under Grace Wilson's name. All along, she had immense respect for Lady Evans, but Grace Wilson's words earlier left Clara Evans feeling cold. She knew that Sophia Evans had grown up by their mother's side, and was aware that Sophia Evans was better at being playful and pleasing Grace Wilson. However, Grace Wilson was too biased. After all, Charlotte was her biological daughter. If she wanted to show favoritism, it should be towards Charlotte. Moreover, Charlotte had suffered so much hardship in the countryside. Now that she had just returned to the mansion, instead of thinking about compensating Charlotte, Grace Wilson found an excuse to send her back just because Charlotte was more favored by the Princess's Academy than Sophia. She even pushed Sophia aside afterward. Clara Evans felt Grace Wilson was too partial and unreasonable this time. Charlotte Evans, on the other hand, didn't feel much about it. At that time, she was indeed very aggrieved and angry, but later, after thinking it over, she suddenly realized she had already calmed down and smiled. Let's not talk about these things anymore. If you also want to attend the Pear Blossom banquet, then we can discuss together what clothes to wear and what accessories to pair with them to avoid being impolite. Seeing Charlotte Evans change the subject, Clara Evans didn't pursue the matter further. Besides, clothing and accessories were always the favorite topics of young ladies. Smiling, she said, "You've just returned to the mansion, and are attending such an event for the first time. In the next few days, I'll explain to you the preferences and taboos of the noblewomen in Royal City, as well as what to pay attention to at the banquet. These are the most important things." In the past few days, Charlotte Evans had always been with Clara Evans. In the mornings, the two would visit their grandmother, and then they would go to Grace Wilson's place. Grace Wilson was still angry at Charlotte Evans for talking back to her that day. Moreover, she had already lowered herself to ask Charlotte Evans to calm down, only to be refused. This left her deeply unsettled, believing, as Nanny Tri had said, that Charlotte Evans had always been targeting Sophia Evans and wanted to drive her away. Facing Charlotte Evans, Grace Wilson didn't show a good expression. But Charlotte Evans didn't want to deal with Grace Wilson's attitude either. After paying her respects, she followed Clara Evans out. After the two left, Sophia Evans' eyes flickered. She stood up, sat beside Grace Wilson, and hugged her arm coquettishly. "Mother, you said the Princess's Academy invited us. Does that mean the Princess's Academy has taken a liking to our family and wants to support the Evans family? Oh dear, where did you hear such things? Support? Don't ever say such things again in the future. Be careful not to bring trouble upon yourself." "Ah, I understand, Mother," Sophia Evans said. "Am I not happy now? At the Spring Begonia banquet, Princess Amelia specifically asked me to play the zither and even rewarded me with a jade pendant. She values me so much. I must work even harder." The day after Charlotte Evans returned to the mansion, Sophia Evans happened to meet Lady Beatrice again. Coincidentally, Sophia was practicing the zither at that time. Lady Beatrice mocked her, saying her playing sounded like she was fluffing cotton. Humiliated, Sophia was brought to tears. By chance, Princess Amelia overheard and immediately asked Sophia to perform a piece. After she finished, Princess Amelia praised her extraordinary musical talent and rewarded her with a jade pendant. Princess Amelia remarked that with Sophia's beauty and knowledge, she would undoubtedly have a bright future. She gifted her the jade pendant, encouraging her to study diligently to avoid any embarrassment in the future. Receiving such personal praise from Princess Amelia, who even mentioned her promising future. Could this mean Sophia might marry into royalty or nobility? Suddenly, those who once looked down on the Evans family began to approach them due to their connection to Princess Amelia. Even Grace Wilson started receiving attention. Families of lower status than the Evans household scrambled to curry favor with them. In just a few short days, Grace Wilson found herself in a position of newfound prestige. Grace Wilson reflected on the treatment she had received over the past few days, something she had never experienced in all these years. She couldn't help but feel a surge of confidence, standing taller than ever.
Isa, isn't it all thanks to Sophia? Sophia truly is my lucky star.
Sophia Evans beamed even brighter. But then, as if struck by a thought, her smile gradually faded, leaving her looking sorrowful.
Oh dear, Sophia, what's the matter?
Grace Wilson asked, puzzled.
Why the sudden sadness? Mother.
Sophia Evans hesitated.
I know Sister No has suffered greatly on my behalf. It was hard enough for her to return, and we should all yield to her and make amends. But during the spring begonia banquet, she defied you. She was actually the first one Princess Amelia rewarded. She resents me for taking her place. That's why she didn't help me shine in front of Princess Amelia. I completely understand. But for her to disregard even you, Mother, could it be that she holds resentment toward you as well? To even blame you, Mother?
After finishing her words, Sophia feigned regret and hurriedly added,
Mother, please don't overthink. It was my slip of the tongue. Sister is so filial. How could she possibly resent you? Sophia, there's no need to defend her.
Grace Wilson replied with a grim expression.
Why does she always defy me? So, she's been harboring resentment toward me all along? What does she have to resent me for?
Sophia Evans's eyes sparkled. Mother, please don't be angry anymore. It was my fault for saying the wrong thing. Grace Wilson wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Sophia Evans. Mother, the day after tomorrow is when the pear blossoms bloom. My clothes and jewelry are all old now. Could you make me 2 new sets? Hearing this, Grace Wilson nodded. I will do as you ask. However, it's certainly too late to make them now. Another day, I'll take you to Lily Green Pavilion to choose 2 new outfits and have 2 sets of jewelry made. Sophia Evans was overjoyed. Thank you, Mother. I know you love Sophia the most. Don't worry, Mother. I promise to be filial to you in the future, so you can enjoy happiness and become the happiest mother in the world. Grace Wilson was coaxed into laughter by Sophia Evans. All right. I'll wait for that day. After chatting with Grace Wilson for a while, Sophia Evans finally left. Just as she was about to leave, she remembered something and reminded Grace Wilson, Mother, as I've said before, even if elder sister is dissatisfied with you, please don't blame her. I believe there will come a day when she understands your hardships. Grace Wilson's face suddenly turned cold. All right, I know. She sighed as she finished speaking. Ah, my Sophia is truly a considerate and understanding child. After Sophia Evans left, Catherine Taylor, the maid, hesitated for a long time before speaking. Madam, what the 6th Miss just said, if it weren't for Sophia mentioning it, I wouldn't have known that Charlotte Evans had such thoughts. What right does she have to resent me? The events of the past weren't my fault, nor were they Sophia's fault. Now that she's back, I don't mind that she's useless, coarse, and untalented, yet she dares to blame me, her own mother. Catherine Taylor was startled and quickly responded. Oh no, madam, you must be mistaken. The 5th Miss probably didn't mean it that way. If she didn't mean it that way, then what did she mean? Grace Wilson interrupted her. Why are you even speaking up for her? I'm not speaking up for her. I just feel that the 5th Miss is a bit pitiful. Is she pitiable? How dare she talk back to me? Grace Wilson's face turned pale.
Enough, stop talking. Sophia's right. She's just good at disguising herself, deceiving all of you. If she had even half of Sophia's qualities, I wouldn't have treated her this way. Madam Catherine Taylor gave a bitter smile, not expecting Grace Wilson to be this extreme, harboring such deep misunderstandings about the 5th Mississippi. It must be understood that the 5th Miss was her own flesh and blood, while the 6th Miss, no matter how long she had been raised, was still someone else's child. Of course, she wasn't saying the 6th Miss was bad or that adopted children were undeserving. There are plenty of cases in this world where adopted children are even more loyal and filial than biological ones. But it was clear that the 6th Miss had ill intentions, and even someone like her, a mere servant, could tell she was deliberately sowing discord. Yet Grace Wilson blindly trusted the 6th Miss and constantly criticized the 5th Mississippi. Catherine Taylor wanted to advise her, but Grace Wilson wouldn't listen, leaving Catherine Taylor silently worried. As for Clara Evans, after leaving Grace Wilson's place, she noticed Charlotte Evans had also followed her outside. Seeing Clara Evans look at her, Charlotte Evans asked, "What's wrong with elder sister?" "Oh dear, how can you be so naive?" Clara Evans sighed, speaking helplessly. "Don't you see that Sophia didn't come out either?" Seeing Charlotte Evans still confused, Clara Evans spoke bluntly. "Do you know where those fancy clothes, jewels, and accessories come from? It's because she knows how to act coy, of course. Among so many sisters in the household, only she knows how to win mother's favor. Don't believe me? Just watch. Right now, she's probably inside sweet-talking mother into making new clothes and jewelry for her. The Pear Blossom Banquet is in 5 days, and Sophia values it more than you do. Since you've just returned to the household and don't have many tricks up your sleeve, you should learn from Sophia and act a little spoiled with mother. After all, with Sophia leading the way, mother can't be too biased and will naturally not neglect you." Charlotte Evans smiled. "Elder sister, don't worry about me. I have no interest in these banquets. At the Crabapple Flower Banquet, I already caught everyone's attention. If I stand out again at the Pear Blossom Banquet, it wouldn't be good. Besides, it's the banquet of the Princess Royal. Who knows how many noble families will attend? I don't want to become a target." Hearing that, Clara Evans sighed. "Hayes, your uncompetitive nature, I don't even know whether it's good or bad, Charlotte Evans." "If you don't know whether it's good or bad, then it's definitely good." Clara Evans also laughed. "Where did you learn this twisted reasoning?" The matter of Charlotte Evans suddenly returning to the mansion from the Camellia Banquet was discovered by Daniel Evans. Moreover, knowing that she would attend the Pear Blossom Banquet 5 days later, he immediately took Charlotte Evans and Clara Evans to Lily Green Pavilion to shop for clothing and jewelry. Daniel Evans had more money than the young ladies. Besides his monthly income, he also received support from Eleanor Evans and Thomas Evans. On top of that, working under the 6th Prince earned him many rewards. Upon entering Lily Green Pavilion, he generously picked out 4 sets of clothing and 4 sets of hairpins for Charlotte Evans. Even Clara Evans teased, "Oh my, I've never seen elder brother so generous. Even I haven't been treated like this. It seems elder brother truly cherishes 5th sister." Then she asked the shopkeeper to add 2 more sets of dresses and jewelry, smiling at Charlotte Evans. "I'm not as wealthy as elder brother, but I don't want to be outdone by him. Consider these 2 sets as a meeting gift from me to you. A girl must dress beautifully." The words exchanged between the two were filled with warmth. "Elder sister, this isn't right." Charlotte Evans hurriedly declined. "You're about to marry into the Yongxing Marquis household, so you should save some money for your dowry. Having money with you when you enter the Yongxing Marquis household will ensure you won't be looked down upon, and will make things easier." Clara Evans couldn't help but laugh. "How old are you to already know such things? Where did you learn this?"
elder sister. All right then. Daniel Evans smiled and said, you two sisters don't need to argue anymore. Charlotte is right. Tinny, keep your silver. I'll add 2 more sets. Each of you and Charlotte will have 2 sets. That's fair enough. That won't do. Charlotte Evans quickly shook her head. Big brother, you've already spent too much today. Just give it to the eldest sister. There's no need to give me anything. You 3 siblings are truly respectful and loving toward each other. While speaking, Madame Lana suddenly lifted the curtain and entered. It turned out that Madame Lana had gone out today to check the account books. Upon hearing that her niece and nephew came to buy clothes and jewelry, she decided to come and take a look. Compared to Sophia Evans and Grace Wilson, Madame Lana held great affection for Daniel Evans and Clara Evans. These 2 children had integrity. Even though they knew Lily Green Pavilion was their family's business, they always insisted on paying the full price whenever they shopped, never taking advantage. It wasn't about the money, but their behavior made Madame Lana respect them even more. Seeing the 3 in a dilemma, Madame Lana decided, all right, since we've met today, I'll cover half the cost of the 4 sets of clothes and jewelry for Charlotte here. 1 set of clothing and jewelry from Tin will be a meeting gift for Charlotte. No need to argue over this, or it'll embarrass you sisters. Additionally, I'll gift each of you 2 more sets of clothes. For the 2 young ladies, I'll add 2 sets of jewelry. As for Dai, being a boy, he doesn't need jewelry. Conveniently, there's a jade pendant here. The quality of the jade is excellent. It'll make a perfect accessory for you. See, now everyone's happy, aren't they? Madame Lana was so generous that everyone protested. How can this be? Third aunt, we absolutely can't accept this. Even though we're family, your shop has its expenses. Running a business isn't easy. How can we take things from you without paying? They firmly handed the silver to Madame Lana, only to be met with her stern glare. Since you've called me third aunt, put that silver away. Do you expect me to charge my niece and nephew for gifts? The 3 had no choice but to accept. Madame Lana didn't hide the fact that she gave them clothes, jewelry, and the jade pendant. The next day, Sophia Evans found out about this, and became so furious that she smashed a cup. What does she mean by that? Usually, when my mother brings her silver, she doesn't even care. But now that Charlotte Evans is shopping, she gives things away for free? I get it now. She's deliberately raising Charlotte Evans's value just to disgust me. Her maid tried to console her. Miss, please don't get upset. Be careful not to harm your health. Sophia Evans clenched her teeth as she sat on the chair, her anger evident. To me, Mama muttered to herself quietly. Miss, I don't understand grand principles. I only know that, if you don't hold on to Madam tightly now, the 5th Miss will sooner or later drive you out. Just take the matter of the spring banquet at High Tang as an example. When the 5th Miss was around, Princess Amelia didn't even spare you a glance. But as soon as the 5th Miss left, Princess Amelia immediately took notice of you. Can you truly say the 5th Miss had no hand in this? Sophia Evans' eyes flickered momentarily. She had long suspected this. She knew Charlotte Evans' intentions, and was well aware that Charlotte was determined to drive her away, even going so far as to speak ill of her in front of Princess Amelia. However, Mama Tummy was right. So long as her mother still supported her, she would always remain the cherished daughter of the household. Emily Davis then added, At present, the 1st Miss, the 1st Young Master, and Margaret Evans are all putting in their utmost effort to ensure the 5th Miss makes a grand appearance at the Pear Blossom Banquet to overshadow you. This would give them even more reason to push you out. So you must come up with a plan. It's easy for you to say, but how can I just come up with a plan out of nowhere? Isn't it simple? Emily Davis hinted at something.
Everyone knows the fifth Miss is deeply infatuated with young Master Evans. However, she has offended Lady Beatrice and Miss Jane Wright. Tell me, what do you think will happen when the three of them meet at the Pear Blossom banquet?
Although societal constraints on women have loosened significantly, families of high status still value a woman's reputation when choosing a wife. Charlotte Evans' heart stirred slightly.
Are you suggesting that the fifth Miss, by her own actions and refusal to heed advice, will ruin herself? Even if I feel sorry for her, there's nothing I can do about it. Besides, which young lady wouldn't be drawn to someone like young Master Evans? Can you guarantee that the fifth Miss doesn't have such intentions? If everyone wants to marry young Master Evans, why shouldn't it be you, miss? You are Madame's most beloved daughter, and you've even been personally recognized and rewarded by Princess Amelia. Such favor is unparalleled. Who could possibly surpass you?
Hearing this, Charlotte Evans bit her lip lightly, her gaze carrying a mix of emotions, as if she wanted to speak but hesitated. From the moment she first laid eyes on Crown Prince Evans, she was captivated. His lips always held a faint smile, and his deep, unfathomable eyes seemed to make him the most important person in her world. However, Sophia Evans had never dared to dream of being connected to Crown Prince Evans before. But things were different now. Madame Emily Davis's words made perfect sense. Sophia had earned Princess Amelia's favor, and if she worked harder to win over concubine Hua and put in more effort, why couldn't she become one of Crown Prince Evans's concubines? Thinking of this, Sophia Evans was filled with determination. She absolutely couldn't let Charlotte Evans become an obstacle on her path to success. Sophia Evans turned to Emily Davis and asked,
Madam, do you have any good ideas?
Seeing Sophia Evans heed her advice, Madame Emily Davis felt delighted. She leaned closer to Sophia's ear and whispered,
All you need to do is...
Her voice grew softer, leaving Sophia Evans with an uncertain and hesitant expression. After a long pause, Sophia Evans spoke slowly.
This is not right. This is far too bold. If something happens, oh dear, miss, you're being foolish.
Madame Emily Davis exclaimed anxiously.
If you're afraid of entering the wolf's den, how will you ever capture the wolf cub? Besides, who could possibly suspect it was you? But if Crown Prince Evans investigates, that's absolutely impossible.
Madame Emily Davis sighed.
The Duchess is highly concerned with propriety. When the time comes, she'll only think that the fifth Miss is improper. Just think, how could the esteemed Duke's household accept a woman of questionable virtue into their family?
Noticing Sophia Evans's hesitation, Madame Emily Davis delivered the final blow.
Miss, if you don't have the heart to act now, someone else will surely act against you in the future. Do you really want to return to the countryside and marry an old man in his 60s as his second wife? No, I can't let that happen.
Hearing this, Sophia Evans's eyes flickered, and she finally made up her mind.
All right, I'll follow your advice, madam.
It was Sophia Evans's first time doing something like this, and her heart was uneasy. For the past few days, she didn't dare to face Charlotte Evans, always finding ways to avoid her. There was only one day left until the Pear Blossom banquet. That day, as Sophia Evans strolled in the courtyard with her maid, she encountered Daniel Evans, who had just returned to the estate.
Elder brother.
Sophia Evans greeted him with a bow. Daniel Evans was a man of few words, traditional in nature, yet deeply cared for Sophia Evans. In the past, he would only nod and walk away. However, this time, he took the initiative to speak.
Luke Mui, I have something to discuss with you.
Sophia Evans was slightly surprised and cautiously asked,
You're looking for me.
Daniel Evans didn't beat around the bush and spoke directly.
Luke Mui, you've always been favored by Mother. Now that fifth sister has returned to the estate after enduring so much hardship, if you have any compassion. If I have compassion, then what? Then you should care for her instead of blindly siding with mother and wronging your elder sister. Have you ever thought about how fifth sister must have felt, all alone, being driven out of the high tank spring banquet by mother?
Sophia Evans' face turned pale, a mix of anger and shame. She hadn't expected Daniel Evans to say such things and couldn't help but retort.
Elder brother, what do you mean by this? Are you implying that it was my fault that my sister was driven out of the high tang spring banquet?
Daniel Evans frowned.
Luke Mui, why feel so aggrieved? I wasn't there at the time, so I don't know the exact reason, but you surely know better than I do. One thing is clear though, my younger sister is not someone anyone can bully.
With those words, Daniel Evans turned and left, leaving Sophia Evans rooted to the spot, nearly collapsing. She clenched her maid's hand tightly, her eyes filled with undisguised hatred. Mother dared to let Charlotte Evans return to the estate, but wasn't it because Charlotte Evans had failed to conduct herself properly and offended Miss Jane Wright? What did that have to do with her? Moreover, what did her elder brother mean by saying that his younger sister was not someone to be bullied? So all this time, in her elder brother's heart, she had never truly been considered his younger sister. As soon as Charlotte Evans returned, she immediately became an outsider. The image of Daniel Evans was like a thorn, piercing deeply into Sophia Evans' heart. Initially, she had felt guilty towards Charlotte Evans, but now, she thought Charlotte Evans deserved everything that happened to her. Taking a deep breath, Sophia Evans muttered,
"Don't blame me for being ruthless. It's all because of you pushing me to this point."
One early morning, Charlotte Evans was awakened by Mary Smith. A line of maids and servants carried makeup items and stood ready to assist Charlotte Evans with her morning routine. After getting dressed and prepared, Daisy Brown brought over some pastries. Mary Smith said,
"Miss, please have some breakfast. Today, you'll be attending the Pear Blossom Banquet, and you likely won't have a proper chance to eat."
Even without Mary Smith's reminder, Charlotte Evans understood. Not only would the food be inedible, but even drinking tea would have to be done sparingly to avoid any embarrassment at the banquet. Today, Charlotte Evans chose a light sea blue outfit that wasn't too conspicuous, paired with a matching pearl-embellished headband. Charlotte Evans had been back at the residence for a while. Being well taken care of all day and avoiding the sun, her skin had become much fairer compared to when she first returned. Mary Smith noticed that the outfit her young lady was wearing complemented her skin tone perfectly. Unexpectedly, Clara Evans, upon seeing it, remarked, "Younger sister, your attire is far too simple. After all, you are the legitimate daughter. At the very least, you should wear something more extravagant." As Clara Evans finished speaking, Sophia Evans appeared, surrounded by maids and attendants. She was dressed in a pink outfit embroidered with gold threads, a red gold necklace adorned with rubies around her neck. Her ears were decorated with ruby earrings of the same shade. Her hair was styled in a butterfly bun, intertwined with strands of ruby beads. On her wrists, she wore a pair of intricately carved cloud-patterned gold bracelets. Although Sophia Evans's features were not as striking as others, her fair and delicate skin made up for it. Dressed this way, moving amidst the shimmering light of jewels, she looked radiant. Clara Evans was taken aback, a complex expression flashing in her eyes. "Just look at our sixth sister. She appears even more regal than you, the legitimate daughter." Charlotte Evans smiled. "Sixth sister has fair and soft skin. She looks good in anything. Unlike me, with my tan skin. If I were to wear that bright red outfit, I'd surely be ridiculed." Clara Evans was left speechless by Charlotte Evans's remark. After a moment, she responded, "Don't worry, your skin is just sunburned. In time, it will surely lighten and become as soft as Sophia Evans's." Charlotte Evans knew her skin would eventually lighten, but it could never match the beauty of Sophia Evans's. After all, in her previous life, William Evans had praised Sophia Evans's skin as soft and white as the snow of early spring. As the two were talking, Sophia Evans approached. After the sisters exchanged greetings, Sophia Evans spoke. "Eldest sister, fifth sister, Mother has specially arranged a private carriage for me. Would you like to join me? The carriage is spacious, and it's rather dull traveling alone." Both Clara Evans and Charlotte Evans politely declined. "Ah, how unfortunate." Sophia Evans expressed regret. "I still wanted to chat with you two sisters." "If that's the case, let's head to Princess Amelia's residence and enter together." She smiled softly, then walked toward the carriage behind them. Clara Evans sighed. "See? She hasn't accomplished anything yet, but is already showing off in front of us." Charlotte Evans remained indifferent. "If eldest sister doesn't like it, just ignore her." In the Evans residence, only Clara Evans, Charlotte Evans, and Sophia Evans received invitation cards, and Eleanor Evans accompanied the three of them. However, for some reason, Sophia Evans brought Emma Evans along as well. Princess Amelia's residence was grand and imposing, exuding an air of solemnity and tranquility everywhere. Despite Sophia Evans's smugness, she couldn't help but feel timid, lowering her head and following Eleanor Evans. The banquet this time was much like those in the palace. The noble ladies sat together, the young unmarried women sat in another area, and countless handsome young men filled the surroundings. Although Princess Amelia only had Lady Claire as her biological daughter, she had a strong fondness for fortune-telling. Anyone who caught Princess Amelia's attention would have the chance to meet the Emperor, a privilege even more accessible than passing imperial examinations for fame and status. Thus, many aristocratic families brought their sons along, though none managed to catch the princess's favor. After the pear blossom banquet followed the spring feast of crabapple blossoms. Jane Wright and Lady Beatrice, who were humiliated at the Evans residence, had been gossiping about the Evans family in front of other noble daughters for the past few days. Adding to that, the peculiar story of the Evans family mistakenly raising the wrong daughter made Charlotte Evans and her three sisters the center of attention as soon as they took their seats. "Lady Claire, didn't you say 2 days ago that you wanted to meet the young lady from the Evans family?" "Oh, look, they're sitting right over there." Lady Beatrice pointed at Charlotte Evans and spoke to Lady Claire. "The princess is very fond of those two sisters." Lady Claire didn't like Lady Beatrice, but had a very good relationship with William Evans. Lady Claire wasn't sure if her mother liked the young ladies of the Evans family, but she was well aware of her mother bestowing maids upon them. With a disdainful tone, she asked, "Who is the one my mother has rewarded?" Sophia Evans, secretly delighted, stood up and respectfully replied, "Your Highness, it is I." Lady Claire glanced at Sophia Evans from head to toe, nodding slightly with indifference. "Your looks are acceptable." Though Lady Claire was frail and often ill, she wasn't a delicate beauty. On the contrary, she carried an air of authority and grandeur. When she wasn't smiling, no one would dare mistake her for a mere 13-year-old girl. "I've heard you excel in music and chess," Lady Claire remarked. Sophia Evans cautiously responded, "I wouldn't dare say excel, Your Highness. I only know a little." Charlotte Evans, overhearing this, smirked faintly. In truth, Sophia Evans' musical talent was exceptional. Her modest reply of, "Only a little," was a clear understatement. Sophia had expected Lady Claire to ask her to perform, giving her a chance to showcase her skills. However, after a brief nod, Lady Claire simply dismissed her. She then called for Charlotte Evans. To Charlotte, who had lived through another lifetime, the petty schemes and dark thoughts of these young girls were of little concern. She maintained her humility and acted with caution. Seeing Charlotte's unremarkable demeanor, Lady Claire grew bored and asked a couple of casual questions before dismissing her as well. Just as Charlotte returned to her seat, The servants began bringing out food. Emma Evans accidentally bumped into one of the servants, causing the dishes to spill all over Charlotte's clothing. The servant, terrified, immediately knelt down to beg for forgiveness.
"Your Highness, please have mercy. I didn't mean to. Please forgive me."
Emma Evans was startled, staring blankly at the servant before finally glancing at Charlotte Evans. Seeing her remain silent, Emma grew panicked. "Sister. I didn't mean it, fifth sister. I truly didn't mean it." The commotion caught the attention of all the young ladies at the banquet table. Lady Beatrice sneered. Such a country bumpkin, utterly lacking in grace. The entire banquet was ruined. Many present were quietly enjoying the spectacle. Charlotte Evans' dress was stained, leaving her looking disheveled. Some couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. The fifth Miss Evans was truly so impolite. Finally, Lady Claire had to step in. "All right, that's enough. Go back to your room and change your clothes." Charlotte Evans apologized, stood up, and excused herself. Clara Evans wanted to accompany her, but Charlotte refused. Before leaving, Charlotte glanced at Emma Evans. Caught under her gaze, Emma fidgeted nervously. It wasn't until Charlotte disappeared from sight that Emma turned to Sophia Evans. "Sixth sister, why did you push me?" If Sophia hadn't pushed her, how could she have bumped into the servant, causing fifth sister's dress to get dirty? Clara Evans suddenly spun around. Sophia Evans remained composed. "Oh, I saw the servant approaching. For sister, you were busy looking around, and I was afraid you'd bump into the servant, so I pulled you slightly. I didn't expect that you'd still accidentally collide." Sophia Evans feigned regret, as if implying Emma Evans was simply clumsy.